Meet Cookie, a lowly scrap collector in a world that worships magic. Born without a single drop of mana, he was utterly powerless. In this realm, mages are revered, and the magicless are scorned. But on the day the world was destined to end, Cookie awakened a power beyond all comprehension. He gained the ability to train for centuries within his own mind, while not even a single second ticked by in reality. With this heaven-defying power, he would rise as a genius, forcing the very nobles who mocked him to their knees. Our story begins as an ancient mage delivers a shocking prophecy, a dire warning that a cataclysm would soon descend upon the world. He declared that in 5 years' time, an unknown threat would utterly annihilate all of humanity. Panic erupted, for this sage possessed the gift of foresight, and his predictions had never once been wrong. But then, the mage revealed he had also seen a faint, solitary glimmer of hope. He pointed towards a mysterious group, declaring that 7 saviors stood among them, destined to save the world. The crowd gasped as they began to recognize the legendary figures beneath the cloaks. Among them stood humanity's strongest warrior and its most brilliant strategic mind. Even the youngest S-rank mage in history was part of this legendary team. The doomsday prophecy was terrifying, but now, a path to survival had been revealed. With this pantheon of heroes, the world was filled with hope. And amidst this swirling vortex of fear and faith, one young man's destiny was about to awaken. Our main character watched the broadcast on a massive screen, and it was here that his epic journey would truly begin. The scene shifts to Tokyo, 5 years later. On the exact day foretold by the prophecy, a reporter asks the public which hero they have the most faith in. Meanwhile, a lone scrap collector goes about his work, completely detached from the city's feverish excitement. Our main character, Cookie, finds it strange. They called this doomsday, but it felt more like a festival. Suddenly, a familiar face flashes across the screen. He instantly recognizes her as 𝑰𝑵𝑽𝑰𝑚𝑬. The footage shows her fighting valiantly, hailed as one of the strongest among the 7 saviors. He then recalls that she was assigned as a direct subordinate to Savior number 7, a truly elite position. A memory flashes back. A young Cookie, buried under mountains of books in the library. 2 girls sneered, saying his efforts were pointless since he was born without magic. But then, Mickey appeared, telling him to ignore their venomous words, and that it was closing time. With a warm smile, she told him he could achieve anything as long as he never gave up. Back in the present, inspired by her image, he spots a discarded magic book in the trash. He clutched it tightly, thinking that if he just refused to give up, maybe one day, he too could wield magic. But suddenly, the book begins to glow. At that exact moment, 2 thugs show up, sneering at the magicless trash. They mock him with utter contempt, saying a lowly janitor should stick to collecting garbage, not magic tomes. One of them incinerates the book with a spell and smacks a can against Cookie's head. But just then, the sky darkens ominously, and massive crimson portals tear open reality, just as the prophecy foretold. From the rifts, grotesque monsters and colossal skeletons begin to pour forth. The apocalypse had finally begun. Amidst the chaos, a brilliant light pierces the sky, heralding the arrival of the 7 saviors. Humanity's greatest champions descend, ready to face the encroaching doom. Their leader glares down the monstrous horde as the crowd roars with hope, screaming for their heroes to save them from total annihilation. One of the heroes smirks confidently, telling the crowd to relax, and boasting that he'll end this whole affair in a flash. Savior number 2 leads the charge, rocketing towards the monsters. He unleashes a devastating blast of energy, and the crowd goes wild at the spectacular display of power. Everyone believed it was over for the monsters. But when the smoke cleared, the creature stood completely unharmed. The monster didn't have a single scratch. Then, despair washed over the crowd as they saw the lifeless body of a hero on the ground. The camera pans to 3 girls, still cheering wildly for their idol. In the very next shot, they are drenched in blood, the ecstatic smiles still frozen on their faces. The girl's expression contorts into one of pure shock and horror, unable to process the carnage that just occurred. Amidst the smoke and devastation, even the strongest of the heroes lies utterly defeated. Our main character stares in disbelief, unable to comprehend the scene before him. He questions his own sanity. How could this be real? Weren't the 7 saviors supposed to be invincible? In the ensuing chaos, he runs desperately through the burning city, screaming his sister's name. The young man stops, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. Finally, he spots her alongside Savior number 7, but she tells him, it's no use. They are retreating. As a monster closes in, the so-called hero grabs her. Then, in a shocking act of cowardice, he shoves her towards the beast, screaming that she will be the decoy. Without a shred of mercy, number 7 kicks his own teammate, offering her as a sacrifice. Cookie watches in utter horror, a scream tearing from his throat, refusing to believe his own eyes. Cookie screams, demanding to know what he's doing. But the hero simply replies that he is one of the 7 saviors. The traitor declares that his life is worth more than any woman's and abandons her to die. On the ground, his sister sees him and begs him to run as the monster descends. But Cookie plants himself in front of her, roaring at the hideous beast to stay away. Even injured, his sister thinks he looks absolutely heroic because in this moment of absolute despair, he chose to be brave. The main character glares at the creature, cursing his own powerlessness, his magicless body. He stands as a human shield, not caring what happens to him. With absolute desperation in his eyes, he screams to the heavens, begging for the power to save his sister. And in that very instant, as if answering his plea, a glowing magic sigil materializes out of thin air on his hand. With this newfound power, he stops the monster's colossal foot dead in its tracks. His sister, lying on the cold ground, can only stare in utter disbelief at the impossible scene unfolding before her. Even Cookie himself was stunned by this overwhelming force, wondering what in the world had just manifested. A voice then explained that he now wielded magic, and soon he would understand the secrets behind everything. An extraordinary power surged through his very being, and he noticed the horde of monsters had suddenly stopped dead in their tracks. It was his sister's doing. She had unleashed the power of a forbidden grimoire, one she had managed to acquire from the ministry's own library. The grimoire erupted in a blinding flash of light, and our main character watched as time itself began to unravel around him. The world rewound 5 years into the past. To the very day the prophecy of ruin was declared, we see his younger self, lost in a crowd, hearing the dire news that humanity was doomed. With a look of pure astonishment, it finally dawned on him. He had actually returned to the past. But around him, the crowd was cheering ecstatically, their faces filled with admiration as they gazed upward. Cookie collapsed to the ground, completely disoriented, his mind reeling. What on earth was happening? He fumbled for his phone, and the screen confirmed his fears, displaying the date from 5 years ago. Our hero was in utter shock. He had truly regressed 5 years into the past. Just then, a man walked past him, asking his friend if he'd heard the news about the world's end. His friend seemed skeptical, but the man insisted it was a prophecy from the Grand Sorcerer himself. So it had to be true. Someone in the crowd wondered aloud if this meant the 7 saviors would be called upon to save them all. Right on cue, the city's massive screens lit up with images of the heroes, and the crowd erupted in a frenzy. The first to be introduced was Sagai Tesu, hailed as the strongest man in all of humanity. Next up was Jumon Sejiro, the magnate who practically ruled the world with his influence. The third was Iwa Himaka, the powerful and feared queen of the entire criminal underworld. The fourth savior was Kyogi Rampo, a true monster said to possess infinite mana. The fifth was Asia, the ultimate mastermind renowned for knowing absolutely everything. The sixth was Suzaki Ori, the youngest genius mage in recorded history. And finally, Arakuleo, a man blessed with looks, wealth, and skill, rounding out the seemingly perfect team. A voice from the ecstatic crowd screamed that all of this was actually happening. The people cheered wildly, placing all their faith in these heroes to save the world. But Cookie watched on grimly, wondering, was he the only one who remembered the tragic fate that awaited them? He had a swift, agonizing flashback to the future he'd left behind, recalling all the despair and destruction. At that moment, his phone suddenly buzzed. It was a call from his mom. He answered, startled, only to hear his mom say that Mickey had suddenly collapsed, sending a jolt of panic through him. The scene cuts to a massive medical center in the heart of the city. Desperate, Cookie bursts through the hospital doors and slams open his sister's room, screaming her name. His mother was already there, turning to him with a deeply worried expression. He saw Mickey lying unconscious on the bed as his mother explained that all the tests had come back normal. The doctors were completely baffled. Cookie realized this event had never occurred in his original timeline. Then it hit him, his sister's forbidden magic. He suspected the regression spell was the cause of it all. With a new resolve, he headed straight for the school library, a place where he had once spent most of his days. He searched for an old tome he vaguely remembered reading, and finally found it tucked away on a shelf. As he read, his suspicions were confirmed. His sister had used a forbidden spell on him, but the most critical information was torn out. Meanwhile, 2 of his classmates, Wasita and Kusano, were bragging about their dreams of becoming saviors. Wasita declared he wanted to become the strongest mage, the number 1, so all the girls would fall at his feet. But Kusano shot back that in terms of popularity, number 7 was the clear winner with millions of followers. The 7 saviors were so popular that their faces were everywhere, even on keychains people carried daily. Our hero recalled how, 5 years ago, everyone in this world had blindly worshipped them, but he knew the truth. They were useless. If nothing changed, the same tragic future was inevitable. He refused to let his sister's sacrifice be for nothing. This time, he would change the future with his own 2 hands. Just then, the 2 bullies cornered him in the library, just as they'd expected. Wasita swaggered over with a sneer, calling Kuki a pathetic, magic-obsessed freak. He snatched the book from our hero's hands, mocking him for reading about magic again. Kusano chimed in, sneering that it was useless since Kuki was a total failure with 0 mana. With malice in their eyes, they glanced out the window, a cruel plan forming in their minds. Wasita then said with a wicked grin that since Kuki loved magic so much, they'd give him a personal demonstration. A sigil began to glow on the bully's hand, and Kuki realized he was activating a skill. The bully unleashed his skill, roaring that today Kuki would get on his knees and beg for the crime of existing. But our hero remained completely unfazed, dodging the attack with a calmness that stunned his aggressor. Wasita was in shock, wondering why his gravity skill had failed to work this time. He raged that Kuki should be pinned to the floor, unable to even stand after that attack. Seeing his friend fail, an annoyed Kusano prepared to strike with his own thorn magic. But Kuki evaded every single attack with ease, telling them they were simply too slow. He was beginning to realize, magic from low-level users had no effect on him now. His body was far stronger than before, and then it hit him with the force of a thunderclap. He now possessed mana, a gift from his sister's regression spell. A glowing crest materialized on his hand, and he remembered his sister mentioning something like this in the future. The bullies exploded with rage, accusing him of hiding a newly awakened skill. Our protagonist ignored their pathetic whining, focusing instead on this newfound power. The bullies spotted a grimoire on the floor and assumed his skill was weak, chalking his dodges up to dumb luck. But then, a mysterious voice echoed in his mind, announcing that the bully's skills had been archived, leaving him utterly bewildered. Suddenly, the world around him dissolved into cubes of light, transporting him to an entirely different dimension. There, a woman welcomed him to the library, revealing that this very space was his true ability. The mysterious woman introduced herself as the Librarian of Skills, explaining that this domain was, quite literally, a library. She then addressed Kuki by name, and he looked up, completely floored by the bizarre situation. Could this incredible space truly be his own ability? He still couldn't believe it. His eyes scanned the vast space and fell upon a single, glowing bookshelf. Strangely, it held only 2 volumes. Suddenly, both grimoires flew off the shelf and hovered directly in front of him. The librarian then announced that the tutorial was about to begin, explaining that here, skills could be read just like books. At that exact moment, 2 grimoires appeared in Kuki's hands, one glowing with a green aura, the other with a crimson light. The scene then shifts to Wasita and Kusano, 2 students arrogantly showing off their skills. Kuki immediately recognized the identical colors, realizing the books were the source of their abilities. The librarian confirmed his suspicion, stating that any power he witnessed would be stored here as a skill book. He was floored by this revelation, and she asked if he dared to read one and claim its power for himself. With an all-knowing smile, the woman explained that this entire place was Kuki's personal spiritual world. She also revealed that time in the real world was frozen, so he could take all the time he needed. Meanwhile, back in reality, time itself had stopped, freezing his 2 attackers mid-strike. The librarian finished by warning him that the contents were complex, and absorbing them would be agonizing. But he ignored the warning of pain and chose a book, which both surprised and pleased her. Kuki thought he had found paradise, a place where he could read limitlessly and obtain new abilities. He grew ecstatic with the idea of filling this realm with countless books, perhaps even becoming the strongest being in existence. The librarian tried to warn him about skill capacity, but he was far too lost in his own ambition to listen. With a deep sigh, the young man calmed his spirit, preparing to absorb the book's knowledge. A short while later, the woman approached, asking if he had finished assimilating the skills. With his eyes now glowing a piercing blue, he confirmed he had perfectly mastered both powers. Snapping back to reality, Kuki faced his bullies, whose confusion grew at his newfound calm. They began to panic as they realized their attacks were frozen in time, screaming about why nothing was working on him. The main character noted that not a single second had passed as a blue aura began to coalesce in his hand. The sigils of the skills he copied materialized on his palm, glowing with intense power. With a single gesture, he activated the gravity skill, violently launching both attackers into the air. With ice in his veins, Kuki confessed that he had always been jealous of their abilities. He declared that he always knew he could wield their powers far more effectively than they ever could. And then, he cranked the gravity to its absolute maximum, sending them plummeting toward the earth. The camera zooms in on Wasita's face, a mask of pure terror as he hurtles towards the ground. The fear was so intense one of them wet himself mid-fall. Cookie then announced he would use the other ability, his hand beginning to pulse with a verdant green aura. Before they could hit the ground, thorny vines shot out, ensnaring them in midair and leaving them suspended. They began cursing Cookie, screaming at him to stop showing off. He just stood there and watched, thinking how good it felt to finally steal the skills of others. With a look of pure determination, Cookie clenched his fist and declared that this ability was now his. In that same instant, he activated Life Drain, and their screams of defiance turned to shrieks of pure agony. Cookie then sneered that a skill like this was completely wasted on trash like them. He looked up to the heavens, as if remembering a much greater purpose. Staring at his own hands, he thanked his sister for the mana she had granted him. He swore an oath to become strong, to save the world, and her a feat the so-called fake saviors could never accomplish. But suddenly, a hand landed on his shoulder. Hey now, a voice interrupted. To his horror, it was 𝑰𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚, who asked with a mocking grin just who he was, calling a fake savior. Cookie was shocked to see the number 7 hero, 𝑰𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚, and demanded to know what he was doing here. The man said he was just drawn by the noise, then asked if Cookie was one of his little anti-fans. He then held out his phone, revealing that our main character was being broadcast on his livestream for the whole world to see. Araki shoved the phone in his face, threateningly asking if he was going to apologize. But Cookie didn't flinch, declaring he'd done nothing wrong, because they had all failed to save the world. The scene flashes back, showing someone being thrown in front of an attack. Cookie spat that all Leo ever does is hurt other people. Upon hearing that, Araki's expression began to warp. Seeing he was getting genuinely furious, Cookie's own anger flared as he screamed that he was not a real savior. The two stared each other down, the tension mounting with every second. The main character grew fearful as he felt the crushing aura radiating from the man before him. With a terrifying look, Araki asked if he wanted a fight, calling him a pathetic loser. A brilliant golden aura exploded to life around Araki. He goaded Cookie to try and copy his power, his contempt for the boy obvious. The hero found his audacity pathetic, as Cookie was already staggering from the sheer pressure of his aura. Impressed by the power of one of the 7 saviors, Araki then raised a hand towards him, ready to demonstrate why he was a hero. But suddenly, 2 girls appeared, screaming 𝑰𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 name in utter disbelief. They were beyond excited, wondering what he was doing here, and one even asked for an autograph. The hero, annoyed at being interrupted, clicked his tongue and muttered how troublesome this was. He then told Cookie that he got lucky, but next time, there would be no escape. Just like that, his attitude flipped 180 degrees as he went to greet his fans with a super friendly smile. Cook let out a sigh of relief, thinking that the hero's magic was so absurdly powerful, he would have been utterly defeated. But a new danger appeared as he sensed a powerful magical presence approaching fast. Out of nowhere, a fireball scorched the air right past him, forcing him to dodge in shock. From a distance, a girl shouted an apology, explaining that her practice spell had gone off course. She ran up to him and asked if he was okay, and Cookie realized it was Miss Kanai. We learned she is Kanai Momo, a student from the special class with extraordinary magical power. It's explained that certified mages are an elite group, selected only once every 4 years for special missions. The test to become one of them is so difficult that the pass rate is less than 1%. The scene cuts to Momo and Cookie walking together as she compliments him for dealing with Wasita and Kusano. She became thoughtful and mentioned that she remembered a time when Ikuta possessed no magical powers at all. He then confirmed this, explaining with a smile that an ability had finally awakened within him. The girl confessed she felt quite satisfied, as she found those guys to be really irritating. Cook thought she seemed like a good person, and that maybe she would believe his story and help him. He then decided to take a gamble and ask her what she thought of the 7 saviors. Momo excitedly replied that they were her ultimate goal, as she dreamed of becoming the strongest mage. Hearing that, he gave up on the idea, realizing she would never believe the truth. But then, she had a flash of inspiration, and suggested he get his magic power remeasured. Cookie was surprised, as he had never even considered that measuring one's magical power was possible. The scene then shifts to the special training room, which resembles a basketball court. Upon arriving, Momo proudly introduced the special class's power measurement machine. She explains the machine's purpose: a virtual combat simulator that also measures your true power. Cookie clenches his fist, a fire igniting within him. If he becomes a certified mage, maybe they'll finally believe him. He steals his resolve, wondering if this is the path to finally make them believe his story. But suddenly, Momo is startled by a teacher who appears out of nowhere. He scolds her, warning that this area is off-limits to anyone outside the special advanced class. Hearing this, Cookie boldly declares to the teacher, "I request to join the special advanced class." The man is taken aback by his audacity, Remembering that Ikuta ranked dead last in the previous measurement, he announces his next move. He too will take the certified mage exam in 1 month's time. Momo's eyes light up with excitement. She begs the teacher to let her try, wanting to measure her own power. Since it was Kanai who requested it, the teacher reluctantly agrees, and the machine roars to life. In a flash, they're transported to a virtual forest, a flawless replica of a real-life dungeon. From the outside, Momo asks about the monster's level, and the teacher confirms it's a simple E rank. A small, yellow creature materializes before them, and she explains that defeating it will gauge their strength. With a confident smirk, Momo steps forward. "I'll go first," she declares, gathering flames in her palm. She unleashes a powerful fireball, completely engulfing the tiny flying beast. But the creature emerges from the inferno, practically unscathed, leaving Momo stunned that her attack failed. Suddenly, the monster evolves into a colossal form, revealing its true nature as an A-rank beast. "You said it was E-rank," she screams in disbelief. But the teacher reveals the horrifying truth. The difficulty had been set to A rank. Instead of fear, her face lights up with sheer excitement. If she can defeat this, it proves she's A rank or higher. At the same time, the colossal beast doesn't wait, launching a barrage of fireballs right at them. The teacher panics, screaming that this is madness. An A rank is far too powerful for any student. The monster lunges forward, slamming Momo into the ground with a devastating blow. Sprawled on the ground, she yells at the teacher, realizing how badly things have gone wrong and demanding he initiate the emergency escape. But the teacher shouts back in terror, he's trying. But the safety system is failing. Wounded and helpless, she can only watch as the monster roars, ready to strike again. Cookie calmly explains the situation. To escape, this is just like a real dungeon. They have to defeat the boss. Just then, the behemoth charges, its razor-sharp claws aimed to kill. The girl panics, knowing she can't dodge in time. But in a blur of motion, Cookie leaps in, pushing her out of harm's way just in the nick of time. He then hovers in midair, his gravity skill activated, and asks if she is okay. She stares in shock at the brown crest on his hand, realizing it's the power of gravity control. But the monster isn't finished and prepares another aerial assault. Cookie simply states, "We just have to beat it," an idea that infuriates the overwhelmed Momo. The scene then shifts to Cookie's inner world, where the mysterious librarian awaits him. She informs him that she will teach him a new way to use his skills against his foes. The secret is revealed. He can combine 2 skills at once, a technique known as magic addition. Back in the heat of battle, Momo warns him that gravity alone won't be enough to defeat an enemy like this. He simply replies, "That's not all I have," revealing other crests on his hand, shocking the girl to her core. In that instant, he merges his gravity and vine skills, forging a formidable thorny whip. Our main character charges the beast, ready to unleash his newfound power. The attack strikes true, and the colossal creature roars in agony from the impact. With a defiant roar, the main character unleashes his full power, shouting, "This is how it's done." The thorny whip shoots forward with incredible speed, completely ensnaring the monster's body. The beast then begins to break apart into pixels, disintegrating after the fatal blow. Back in reality, Cookie and Momo reappear in the room. He remarks that it was more tiring than he thought. The girl is speechless, unable to process that he defeated that monster in a single strike. He blinks, drained from the effort, but relieved by their victory. But across the room, a suspicious student peeks through the door, wondering if they were dead yet. It turns out, he was the one who hacked the system, thinking Cookie stood no chance against an A-rank monster. The boy is stunned to see the simulation dissolve, realizing they actually survived. Just then, the professor rushes over, desperately asking if they're all right. Momo explains, "It was thanks to Ikuta, who defeated that monster in a single blow." The screen then displays the results, and while Momo's mana is high, Cookie's reads as an error. The professor is floored by this outcome. He's never seen a result like it before. Cookie then turns towards the door and confronts the boy, asking if he was the one who tampered with the device. Momo flies into a rage, grabbing him by the collar and screaming that he's the one who almost got them killed. The boy denies it, but Cookie pressures him to fix the machine. Terrified, the boy gives in when he spots a certain crest on Cookie's hand, revealing that our main character possesses that same skill. With no other choice, the student gets to work, trying to fix the mess he made. But meanwhile, Cookie's eyes glow as he uses his unique ability to copy the other boy's power. Skill. Electronic hacking has been successfully stored, and a new book appears in his inner library as a satisfied smile spreads across his face. Our hero muses on how useful this new ability will be. Just then, the professor grabs the hacker by the shoulder, summoning him to the principal's office for a little chat. He drags the boy down the hall, warning him that if any evidence is found, he'll be in a world of trouble. The professor glances back, still suspicious about what really happened. Cookie looks a bit awkward, scratching his head as he tries to explain things to the girl. The scene changes. A notice on the blackboard reads, 30 days until the mage examination. The professor then introduces Cookie as the newest student in the special enhancement class. Our protagonist bows and introduces himself to the class, saying his name is Ikuta Kuki. The students begin to murmur about him, and one girl raises her hand with a question. She then asks which of the saviors he admires the most, stunning Kuki into silence. The students comment that every mage aspires to be like the 7 saviors, who are treated like global idols. Kuki's expression turns deadly serious as he thinks about the true nature of these so-called heroes. He then answers that he doesn't admire any of them, recalling the dark, twisted face of one of the saviors. He follows up with a bombshell that shocks everyone, stating the world will be destroyed if left in their hands. He continues, declaring that talented people like them cannot afford to simply stand by and wait. Momo was stunned to hear him say that together they could stop the apocalypse. With a blaze of passion in his eyes, he declared that he needed everyone to fight, vowing to become stronger himself. Cookie proclaimed he would surpass anyone and everyone to save their world from the brink of destruction. But one student recorded the entire speech, posting it online with a caption that branded Cookie a madman. The video instantly went viral, with people everywhere using a hashtag to show their love for the 7 saviors. The entire internet flooded with posts supporting the established heroes, showcasing just how beloved they were. From students to office workers, everyone who saw Cookie's speech dismissed it as a ridiculous joke. The news traveled so far and wide that it reached the ears of some very important figures. The scene shifts, showing the 7 saviors gathered together, watching Cookie's video. The professor announced to the class that exams would be held next month, warning everyone to prepare. At that moment, Cookie's very presence in the classroom sent a wave of shock through the other students. The professor stood in the hallway, lost in thought. Just the day before, Cookie was completely devoid of mana. On a call, he reported that the boy's mana was now immeasurable, and that he held some truly extreme views. He continued, explaining that Cookie was spreading the idea that not even the 7 saviors could save the world. On the other end of the line, Jumansujiro listened to the report and granted permission for him to take the certification exam. After hanging up, he turned to a mysterious figure and asked for their opinion on the matter. The man was Sagai Tesu, the #1 ranked hero, who simply observed everything with an air of absolute superiority. Tesu merely closed his eyes in disdain, showing zero interest in the topic. He then stood, stating he didn't care for the ideologies of others. As he walked across the room, a trail of ice froze the furniture, a casual display of his terrifying power. Jumansujiro, the #2, just smiled and remarked that Tesu was as cold a man as ever. Meanwhile, Cookie sighed with worry, regretting that he had said so much in class. He sat alone on a bench, thinking he had only spoken his mind, despite knowing the consequences. To make matters worse, a quick glance at his phone confirmed that rumors about him were already spreading across the entire school. He thought about the time before his regression, when he too admired the heroes. But now, he was just an outcast. In that very moment, a fireball screamed past his face, startling him from the sudden attack. A girl's voice then called out, asking why he looked so down. It was Kanai Momo. She appeared with a bright smile, and told him to just call her Momo. She excitedly sat down beside him, telling him she found him fascinating for suddenly growing strong and daring to criticize the heroes. Momo continued, saying it made her realize they all needed to become stronger on their own. She then mused that they didn't even know if the world was truly going to end. But Cookie cut her off with a grave expression, confirming, "It is. The apocalypse is real." He explained that to make people listen to him, he first needed to become a certified mage they could trust. Hearing this, a smile bloomed on Momo's face, as if she understood and fully supported his decision. With a look of determination, she declared that he had no choice but to pass the exam. He smiled back and thanked her, promising to buy her a bowl of ramen. She immediately demanded 2 bowls. The scene then cuts away, taking us to the front of a massive medical center. Inside, in a sterile room, a girl named Miki Mira lay unconscious in bed. Cookie appeared at her side, telling his sister that he was taking the exam so he could finally save her. With that, Cookie clenched his fist. He knew this was his only chance to save her. A month flew by, and the scene shifted to the grand auditorium of the Ministry of Magic, where the exam was about to take place. Inside, the other candidates began to whisper the moment they saw Cookie arrive. They recognized him as the guy from the video, wondering why he was even attempting the mage exam. Suddenly, someone tapped his shoulder and called his name, making him jump. It was Momo. With a wide grin, she told him to relax and just do his best. Cookie smiled back at her, feeling much more confident with his new friend's support. But moments later, his expression hardened, and he clenched his fists, steeling his resolve to pass. Now, in the classroom, the test began. With dozens of students laser-focused on the written exam, Momo looked perfectly calm, answering questions as if she already knew them all by heart. Cookie then glanced over at the proctor's computer, and a rather audacious idea sparked in his mind. He decided to take the risk. A magic circle made of pure data began to glow in his palm. With it, he activated his electronic hacking ability and successfully infiltrated the exam system. A short while later, the students gathered in the hall, nervously staring at the results board. Momo's jaw dropped as she screamed that what she was seeing was unbelievable. As it turned out, Cookie had placed third, using his ability to cheat by copying the answers. Momo was distraught over her own ranking, crying out that it was horrible and not good at all. But Cookie reassured her with a smile, saying he knew she would pass, so everything was fine. It's explained that the first stage was just to weed out the weaker candidates, and that the real test started now. In a quick flashback, we see that Cookie spent the last month extensively researching his skills. He had also trained relentlessly, becoming accustomed to using his restraint ability without any difficulty. That's why he was confident he would soon be able to use the secret art he had worked so hard to master. The scene changes, showing all the candidates who passed gathered in the center of a completely empty room. The instructor announced that the second stage would be a survival battle, and Momo celebrated that they were in the same group. It was explained that a virtual battlefield would be activated, and anyone unable to continue fighting would be eliminated. Every defeated opponent would grant points, and the top 10 by the time limit would advance. The man also warned that although there was a third stage, this is where most of the candidates would be cut. Cookie and the others grew serious, understanding that only 10 people from their group could pass. The instructor then snapped his fingers, announcing the time limit for the test was 15 minutes. Suddenly, everything around Cookie began to transform, much to his surprise. He was teleported to a forest, and with that, the second stage of the exam had finally begun. Momo shot off immediately, telling Cookie she'd see him later as she dived into the action. She then prepared her skill, unleashing a powerful volley of 1,000 fireballs. One of the nearby candidates was caught right in the middle of the onslaught, with no chance to escape. The system then announced that the candidate was unable to continue and had been eliminated from the test. Momo cheered, ecstatic to have scored a point, as Cookie thought to himself that she was a true battle junkie. But suddenly, a group of 3 students surrounded him, thinking he would be easy prey. Cookie had already anticipated this, knowing everyone here saw him as a weakling with no way to fight back. One of them attacked first, firing a sticky green energy blast toward our hero. The attack found its mark, but the thug quickly realized something was terribly wrong. It turns out, Cookie was just faster. He dodged it with contemptuous ease, leaving his attacker completely speechless. Another bully tried to help, using a smokescreen to blind the main character, but the skill was utterly useless, her confusion growing at the immense gap in their mana. Seeing that magic was ineffective, the last of the group activated his Iron Skin class and rushed in for close-quarters combat. Cookie simply watched his enemy approach, showing no concern at all. With a single hand, he effortlessly blocked the strike, completely neutralizing his opponent's assault. Cookie noted to himself that the sticky shot, smokescreen, and Iron Skin were all quite useful abilities. He then thanked the 3 for the demonstration, and prepared his counterattack. As a verdant aura flared from his hand, our hero activated one of the skills he had just copied. He then summoned a thorned beast that mercilessly attacked the trio of bullies. The system announced all 3 had been eliminated, as Cookie celebrated the success of his new technique. Watching from a distance, Sejiro and the professor remarked that the boy's mana was completely off the charts. Sejiro then smirked, wondering if any contestant could even land a single blow on him. But suddenly, the rank 7 hero 𝑰𝑵𝑽𝑰𝑵𝑬 appeared on the battlefield with an insufferably smug look on his face. A new rule was suddenly announced mid-battle, leaving Cookie baffled by the abrupt change of plans. The rule stated that whoever landed a single hit on 𝑰𝑵𝑽𝑰𝑵𝑬 would instantly pass the test. The professor explained that the hero himself had requested this, so he could film content for his channel. With his arms wide open, Araki invited all the contestants to try and take him on. But in reality, he just saw them as pawns to make himself look cooler and gain more views. The other trainees saw this as a golden opportunity and decided to swarm him all at once. Araki remarked how hard it was to be so popular, but readied himself for the incoming horde. Unleashing his aura, Araki effortlessly pushed back the trainees, warning them they'd never even touch him. But then he noticed Cookie in the back, recognizing him from somewhere with a look of surprise. He recalled the viral video where Cookie had appeared on a live stream for the world to see. In that clip, our hero had screamed at the top of his lungs that they weren't true saviors. Back in the present, Cookie thought it might be a good idea to block the incoming attacks with his thorns. Then he changed his mind, declaring that he would judge this so-called hero himself. The aura surging around him grew so intense that the other trainees couldn't even get close. Enraged, Araki screamed that he couldn't stand weaklings who thought they were the strongest. He then attacked with his full power. His energy blasts sliced through Cookie's thorn defenses, and the sheer force of the impact wounded him. Seeing this, Momo felt a pang of guilt, thinking she'd dragged him into her mess. She decided to confront the hero herself, asking if he thought he was being too harsh on a contestant. But Araki couldn't care less. He attacked the girl without mercy, telling her not to lecture him. Though injured, she wondered if this was how a hero was supposed to act. As she prepared her own fire attack, the hero mocked her, calling her skill a cheap and useless circus trick with no hope of defending her. Momo screamed in agony as the hero's energy blast struck her. The impact sent her flying, and she crashed hard into the ground as Cookie watched it all unfold. For a split second, we see that this was a vision what would have happened if Cookie hadn't acted in time. Seeing his friend in danger, he clenched his fist as his energy exploded in a wave of pure fury. Araki sneered that her skill was trash, and that he always eliminates anyone who sees his true nature. Despite her grave injuries, Momo struggled to her feet to continue the fight. But Cookie was faster, combining the smokescreen and thorn user skills he'd copied. Seeing this, a shocked Araki wondered how the kid's mana had suddenly surged so drastically. A black smoke then began to seep from Cookie's hands as he prepared his new technique. He unleashed his power, and the smoke flooded the battlefield, completely enveloping the hero. Araki dismissed it as a simple distraction and looked up, trying to understand the strategy, but using the smoke as cover, thorns shot out and struck him from within the mist. His face now wounded, Cookie pointed at the hero and declared that he had landed the first blow. On the ground, Momo was stunned he had already mastered a skill he had just learned. Lying on the ground, Momo could only wonder just how powerful Cookie could become as he prepared for the next round. Arakaleo was beyond furious, screaming at Cookie, asking if he knew how much his face was worth. He roared that, for scarring his perfect face, Cookie would not be leaving this place alive. Then, a dark spatial gate tore open in the air, revealing that the hero possessed a summoning skill. Suddenly, a colossal tiger made of pure lightning began to emerge from the portal. Araki then revealed his summoned beast, the divine Fuma, and prepared to attack with everything he had. Cookie was shocked. The beast's power was on a completely different dimension. We then see that Kanai Momo was also being attacked by a powerful monster with a sinister grin. Araki Leo revealed that his skill was a rare type of summoning. He boasted that he could freely control the three-eyed divine beast. He even claimed its power was S rank, or perhaps even higher. He then told Cookie to taste one of the rarest abilities really in existence. With no other choice, our main character screamed as he tried to defend himself. But the attack hit him head-on, sending Cookie's blood flying everywhere. The force of the blow was so devastating that he was instantly thrown backward, left critically injured on the ground. He heard Araki say it was impressive that he survived, but the villain warned that with the next attack, he wouldn't be so lucky. The beast prepared to land the finishing blow on the nearly exhausted Cookie. From a distance, a desperate Kanai Momo screamed for Cookie to stop and run for his life. Cookie thought it was all over for him, as a warning message flashed that his life was in danger, but suddenly, his eyes began to glow as a blue screen materialized from thin air. In his mind's eye, Cookie found himself surrounded by a digital data structure. It was then that the librarian appeared, offering him the use of the binding skill. The scene shifts to 3 weeks before the exam, where Cookie is baffled by his own application. The librarian explains that he's only been adding skills, but he can also multiply them. Cookie sinks into deep thought, never having imagined such a power before. The idea isn't to stack his skills, but to fuse them, creating magic on a whole new level. In that moment, he realizes he's finally found the key to unlocking even greater strength. The librarian warns that the risk is immense, but Cookie cuts her off, his eyes blazing with resolve. He declares that he must grow stronger and will master this technique, no matter the cost. Seeing the fire in his eyes, the librarian gives a knowing smile. She begins her explanation. First, he must read 2 skill books at the exact same time, then immediately create a new ability within his own mind. Cookie focuses, processing the monumental task before him. He has to forge a skill from nothing. He then begins the ritual, attempting to merge gravity control with cross art. Inside the library, he places his hands on the books, ready to fuse their powers. The new skill would be a fusion of gravity and thorns, a completely new kind of power. But frustration takes over as he screams that it's useless, because absolutely nothing happens. The librarian then explains that this was to be expected. Just using 2 skills simultaneously is a feat worthy of a superhuman. To make matters worse, combining them to forge new magic is infinitely more difficult. She concludes that this is the domain of the gods, not something a mortal can learn so easily. We flash back to the present, on the day of the exam, with the librarian still watching over him. He reflects that after 3 whole weeks of grueling practice, he had learned nothing. At this rate, Cookie knows Araki will end up killing both him and poor Momo. Then, he remembers the skill he copied from her, the very one Araki dismissed as useless. We see a quick flashback of the girl screaming as she's hit by a devastating attack. But Cookie disagrees. Her skill is powerful because of its simplicity and its many applications. Suddenly, a strange sensation washes over him, as if his very heart is set ablaze. An image of 2 books begins to form in his mind's eye. One of them is glowing with a brilliant crimson light. With that, our main character finally understands what he needs to do, proclaiming that this time, it will work. In the real world, a powerful red aura explodes from Cookie's body. He unleashes all of this energy at once, stunning the beast summoned by his enemy. Araki is in shock, wondering how he could possibly have so much power left. Seeing this, a smile of hope and joy blossoms on Momo's face. Cookie prepares to unleash everything he has with his powerful binding skill. A confident smirk on his face, he raises a hand, causing dozens of massive boulders to float around him. He finally succeeded, fusing gravity control with the fireball skill. With a triumphant grin, Cookie announces the name of his new magic, Meteor Shower. Araki is left speechless, wondering what in the world those flaming rocks in the sky are. In a panic, he screams an order to his beast. Fuma, destroy those meteors at any cost. The creature obeys instantly, firing a beam of blue energy from its mouth in defense. Fuma's attack strikes the first meteor, causing an explosion of fire and light. But Cookie continues to control the descent of the other rocks with a simple wave of his hand. The meteors bombard the monster without mercy, creating a chain of massive explosions. A colossal blast then engulfs the entire area, kicking up a thick cloud of dust and smoke. Araki stares at Fuma, refusing to believe his summoned beast was defeated so easily. Amidst the chaos, Cookie stands firm, in perfect control of his newfound power. From a distance, an observer comments that this match has dragged on for far too long. A teacher then asks Master Sagat Tesu if the student inside the arena will be alright. They see 2 figures in the smoke, and the teacher is utterly confused. The camera pans to reveal Mickey Mirai, who was observing the battle from afar. The dust finally settles, revealing a panting Araki next to his once mighty monster. Fuma lies defeated on the ground. Cookie then taunts him, saying the useless fireball skill he'd mocked had finally shown its true potential. Seeing this, Momo is moved to tears and blushes, amazed by Cookie's confidence. Our protagonist continues, stating that Araki only relies on the power of his skill. By himself, he isn't truly strong. He then accuses him of being the real piece of trash. All he ever does is look down on others. But Araki denies it all, screaming that it isn't true, that he's different from everyone else, that he is the chosen one. Cookie replies that there's no such thing as a chosen one, but Araki just calls him a fool, laughing as he says, "Of course, there is." The scene shifts to a flashback, showing a 6-year-old Araki eating steak. He's at dinner with his family when his mother calls him over for a talk. She tells him that he is a special person who can have anything he could ever desire in life. His father adds that the people around him are nothing more than garbage. We then see a young Araki stomping on another boy while declaring that this spot belongs to him. The scene shows that he could do whatever he wanted because everyone else was trash in his eyes. Being special gave him the right to abuse other children. A little older, he awakens his skill and summons the beast, Fuma, for the first time. The other girls at school are mesmerized, calling him extraordinary for possessing such a rare power. This only reinforces his belief that he is the chosen one, so he orders Fuma to strike a pose. The beast makes a ridiculous, submissive pose, looking like a giant, muscular kitten. Araki delights in the fact that such a colossal monster does everything he commands. With his talent and blessed life, he believed there was nothing in the world he couldn't obtain. Back in the present, Araki screams that he has everything: family status, women, and skills. To top it all off, he proves he has immense wealth by pulling out a very expensive potion. In the distance, the other students murmur in confusion, thinking Cookie was clearly the stronger one. Without a second thought, Araki chugs the entire potion right in front of him. He explains that the liquid is a super rare item, not something you can find just anywhere. With a smirk, he says its effect is a complete recovery of all his energy. And not only that, the potion also doubles his magic power, making him even stronger than before. Cookie is in shock. It's an impossibly overpowered enhancement item. Araki boasts that, as his own power doubles, so too will the strength of his beast. Fuma then lets out a thunderous roar, enveloped in a blue aura that is far more potent than before. Our protagonist is stunned, at a complete loss for what to do against such overwhelming power. The villain taunts him, asking if Cookie has any fight left in him now. With a wicked smile, he declared this was the end for Cookie. Desperate, Momo screamed her friend's name from afar as Araki ordered Fuma to attack, commanding it to tear the boy to shreds. But to everyone's astonishment, the beast simply stood its ground, its gaze averted. Cookie faced the situation with a calm, serious expression, showing no fear at all. Araki raged, demanding to know what was happening as his beast refused to obey his command. Furious, he tried to kick the creature, screaming that it was his dog and it had to obey, but Fuma roared back at him with its full might, leaving Araki utterly terrified. He couldn't understand it. His skill was supposed to guarantee absolute obedience. That's when Cookie revealed the truth. He possessed the very same skill. A magical grimoire materialized, floating beside him. Araki was stunned, speechless, wondering if this was some kind of trick. Our main character explained that if two users could control the same beast, Fuma would follow the one with whom it shared the strongest bond of friendship. The realization dawned on Araki, who sneered that it was just a pathetic copycat skill. Desperate, he screamed that he had been with Fuma for far longer and ordered it to obey. But Cookie revealed the devastating truth, stating that the beast had never truly trusted him. Shocked by this revelation, Cookie explained that he could never form a true bond. We see a quick flashback of him observing Fuma, noting a critical weakness. Cookie concluded by saying Araki's own terrible attitude had caused the beast to have a change of heart. Fuma's eyes began to glow brilliantly, a clear sign that it had now chosen a new master, leaving Araki completely baffled. Araki watched as Fuma simply leaped and landed right beside Cookie. The main character explained that upon connecting with the beast, he realized just what a piece of trash Araki truly was. Cookie declared that Fuma was a living being too, and it deserved to be happier by his side. Enraged by the betrayal, Araki screamed for the beast to stop joking around and return at once. But Cookie reminded him that Fuma's mana had been doubled, thanks to the very potion he himself had provided. The beast then gathered a massive sphere of energy in its maw, ready to unleash its full power. The energy beam struck Araki, who screamed in agony from the devastating impact. Fuma's attack was so brutal it tore Araki's body to pieces. Lying on the ground, he refused to believe he had lost to someone like Cookie. The main character approached him, and with a furious look, commanded him to apologize to his sister. Confused, Araki demanded to know what the hell he was talking about. With a sigil glowing on his hand, Cookie repeated his demand more forcefully. His patience gone, he grabbed Araki's head and slammed it violently into the ground. The system then announced that a contestant had been eliminated due to being unable to continue. From a distance, Momo witnessed the entire scene with a look of utter shock. The other students were also in disbelief, wondering if any of what they just saw was real. It finally dawned on them that Cookie, the lowest-ranked student, had defeated the number 7. The scene shifts to a hospital where Cookie finally awakens, looking a bit confused. At that moment, Kunai Momo appeared by his bed, calling his name with a worried voice. She explained she had also been unconscious for a week after using too much mana right after him. She then grasped his hand tightly, saying that she was the one who should be thanking him. With a blushing face, she thanked him for protecting her from Araki's dangerous attack. A stunned Cookie stared at her, completely confused, but then he suddenly remembered the exam and frantically asked about the results. She gave him a triumphant smile and happily revealed that they both had passed the test. He let out a sigh of relief, glad that at least she had made it. In his mind, he regretted passing out, believing that he had failed because of it. Frustrated, he clenched the bedsheets, feeling weak and useless, unable to change the world with his power. He then congratulated her, but Momo found it strange that he acted as if it had nothing to do with him. With an excited gesture, she broke the news, revealing that he had passed the exam too. The scene changes to the front of a massive and luxurious academy where they will be studying. Looking at the other students, Cookie thought that while passing was good, he felt the real challenge was just beginning. He was shocked to discover that he had somehow become the top-ranked student in his class. Seeing this, the other students began to whisper, doubting if he could truly save the world. Cookie reflected that because he had defeated one of the 7 saviors, the public's distrust in them had grown. That's when the world's number 1, Sagai Tesu, was introduced as the strongest savior. The students could feel his insane aura, but they still jeered at him, thinking he could be defeated. But with a single word, Tesu unleashed a torrent of blue energy and told everyone to be silent. Out of nowhere, massive ice crystals erupted from the ground, showing everyone his extraordinary power. Cookie was impressed, thinking about how that terrifying amount of mana silenced the crowd instantly. Tesu confronted the students and warned them that words are useless against what they were about to face. He explained that in the dungeons, monsters were waiting to devour them, and their mana was nothing but food. With a grave expression, he stated that getting stronger was their only way to survive. Tetsu finished his speech by declaring that a certified mage who isn't strong does not deserve to live. The main character and the others looked up, stunned by the sheer power of the top-ranked mage. The scene quickly cuts to an empty playground, creating a moment of calm. Momo was beyond excited to have met her idol. While Kuki couldn't understand her admiration, Momo then revealed that Tetsu was the one who inspired her to become a certified mage. The scene flashes back to the past, showing her as a little girl crying alone in a dark dungeon. Suddenly, two giant monsters with glowing red eyes appeared before her and let out a terrifying roar. One of the two monsters lunged to attack, preparing to devour the helpless little girl. Panicked, a young Momo covered her head, screaming in fear and waiting for the worst. But from out of nowhere, a massive block of ice stopped the attack, and a mysterious voice told her to stop crying. It was Sagai Tetsu, who appeared with a powerful aura, having saved her life at the last second. He looked at her and said that if she became strong, she would never have to cry again. Back in the present, she said that was the moment she decided she would become stronger to save people. Kuki listened to it all and smiled, completely understanding his friend's feelings. She then asked him why he decided to become a certified mage. With a determined gaze, he replied that his goal was simple: to prevent the apocalypse. Momo's mind raced back to his chilling words, that the seven saviors couldn't save them. She moved closer, asking point blank if he was from the future. But she quickly played it off with a laugh, saying she was only joking because he spoke as if he'd already seen it all. With his body trembling, Kuki revealed the truth. He had lived in a future 5 years from now. Momo was left speechless, thinking it was some kind of sick joke. She remembered he was supposed to have died during the apocalypse, but he urged her not to laugh and to listen carefully to what he was about to say. Seeing the deadly serious look on his face, the horrifying truth finally sank in. The world was truly going to end. The main character then confirmed her deepest fears with a grim expression, making the air thick with tension. She was in shock, realizing that not even the mighty guild leader could save them. A vision of the future flashed by, showing a dead Asia tree and the other heroes fallen. Even Sagai Tetsu, the strongest among them, lay utterly defeated on the ground. Kuki explained that there was no way he could handle all of that alone. Clenching his fists, he admitted it was simply impossible for him. He declared that no matter how strong one person becomes, everyone needs to fight together. Momo repeated the word allies, looking at him with a mix of surprise and admiration. He then confessed that she was the first person he had ever told, his very first true ally. Blushing and with a sincere smile, she thanked him for trusting her. But then she asked why he didn't tell everyone else, since more people would surely believe him. Kuki explained that regression is an ancient magic most don't even believe exists. He also revealed a chilling secret. If his ability was exposed, his sister could be in grave danger. Momo understood the gravity of the situation and immediately asked what their plan was. Clenching his fist, Kuki replied that they needed to get stronger, which is why he became a mage. The scene then shifts, showing the two of them walking through a park together, ready for their new journey. We learn that he and Momo were placed on the same team, beginning their days as mages. The group arrived at the edge of a colossal crater, preparing to explore their first dungeon. Just then, one of the veterans asked if this was the rookie's first time. This only added to Momo's excitement. Kuki thought about how he'd been in virtual dungeons before, but had never faced a real monster. His expression turned serious, knowing this would be his first true battle. But the veterans reassured them, explaining it was a beginner's dungeon, and all they had to do was follow. Both of them agreed, though they seemed a little tense. Before they could waste any time, one of the more experienced members yelled for them to go and jumped into the pit. The entire team then began their descent along the cavern wall, starting their expedition. The system for new mages is simple. They always start in low-level dungeons alongside their seniors. The veterans handle the main fight, while the newcomers learn by observing and gaining experience. Suddenly, one of the seniors grew annoyed at the sight of a monster horde rushing them. He then told the rookies to handle a few of the monsters heading their way. Instantly, Kuki and Momo snapped into a fighting stance, ready for their first battle. Kuki unleashed his skill, summoning thorny vines that quickly ensnared a monster. And with the enemy immobilized, Momo prepared a fireball to finish it off. The veteran praised the rookie's spirit, while Kuki declared he could still fight much more. With a smile, the senior advised him not to rush, as getting used to it slowly was the best way. But our main character was overflowing with energy and told them to watch what he was about to do. He then combined his thorn skill with Momo's fireball, creating a massive area of effect attack. Momo celebrated their new move, and even the veterans were left speechless, finding it absolutely incredible. Suddenly, Kuki felt a surge of power flow into him as he leveled up. But he realized with disappointment that D-rank monsters offered far too little experience for him to get stronger. The scene cuts to the outside, with Cookie having already climbed out of the crater. The gate closed, and Momo cheered happily, relieved they were back on the surface. The veteran asked how the mission went, and she admitted she was nervous, but glad everything turned out okay. With a deadly serious expression, Cookie surprised everyone by saying he wanted to try a high-level crater. Momo was startled by his courage, calling his name with a worried look. The team leader acknowledged that the kid's skills were impressive, but there was a problem. He explained that power isn't everything, because real-world experience makes all the difference when it counts. Cookie clenched his fist and agreed, understanding the veteran's message while Momo looked on. The scene shifts to a diner where a student complained about being hungry while Momo was eating a sandwich. As he snacked, Cookie realized he finally understood what the seniors had said earlier. He knew he couldn't defeat powerful monsters with a skill he barely understood. What he needed was experience. But Momo explained that the world of mages is rigid, and missions are decided by rank. She asked if he was still in a hurry, and Cookie said yes, but that he understood the rules. He then revealed there were only 4 years and 10 months left until the apocalypse. With a grim expression, Cookie said his first goal was to gather more trustworthy allies like her. Momo listened intently, munching on her food while agreeing with his plan. His second goal, he explained, was to gain status so the world would listen to his warnings about the danger to come. After that, he needed to copy the skills essential for battle, like a defense skill to protect everyone, and a healing skill to help the wounded. He wanted to have as many abilities as possible. With a serious look, Momo asked what the fourth and final step of his plan was. He replied that he needed to become strong enough to defeat the monsters that even the guild leader couldn't win against. Clenching his fists, he could feel the pressure of time and knew he desperately needed to act fast. He thought that at this slow pace, he would never be strong enough to save everyone. Momo then remembered something and got Cookie's attention with an idea. She explained that if a mage becomes as powerful as the 7 saviors, they can ignore the ranks. Cookie was thrilled by this news, but she admitted she didn't know how to achieve it. He then realized that if he got acknowledged by the saviors, he'd be able to fight in much stronger dungeons. The scene cuts to a meeting room where the 7 saviors are discussing a serious matter. Aya the Fifth asked with a slight smile what the topic of their conversation was, and Sejiro II replied that it was about the new rookie, Ikuti. Kujirampo, number 2 of the saviors, scoffs, calling him the kid who took down Araki's son. Sejiro explains the kid used his thorn skill and immediately activated another ability. Number 3, Igawa Himaka, concludes he must possess multiple skills, a truly rare feat. Number 6, Suzaki Ori, dismisses it as irrelevant, completely uninterested. All eyes then turn to the leader. Number 1, Sagai Tesu, awaiting his judgment. Without warning, he draws a blade of pure ice and vanishes at an impossible speed, stunning everyone. The scene shifts to Cookie, who feels an overwhelming and terrifying presence closing in. The other saviors are left speechless, wondering what their leader is planning. Sagai Tesu materializes from thin air before Cookie, his deadly ice blade already drawn. Rampo is startled, demanding to know how he bypassed the disciple's lock. But Cookie doesn't even flinch. He activates a new skill, conjuring a magic circle in his hand. The saviors recognize it as a lightning skill. The main character demands to know their purpose. With a look of pure determination, Cookie reveals he's here to ask for a favor. Hearing this, Sejiro's curiosity is piqued. What could this rookie want? Then, facing Tesu head-on, Cookie musters all his courage and requests to join the 7 saviors. Kuji is shocked by the boy's sheer audacity, unable to believe his bold proposal. Sejiro then scoffs, asking if Cookie thinks a single victory earns him a spot among them. Asia reminds the kid that he himself called the 7 saviors useless, but Cookie retorts that this is his fastest path to becoming an S-rank mage. Sejiro observes his mana, pondering the rank-up system. Even Sagai, the strongest among them, took 6 months to achieve that status. But Cookie insists with unwavering resolve, declaring that he needs to get stronger right now. Hearing this, Kuji erupts in anger, yelling, "Don't be such an arrogant brat!" He explains that mages evolve over time as dungeons grow more difficult. Furious, Kuji moves to teach him a lesson, but Sejiro stops him in his tracks. The old man then voices his suspicion that Cookie might be able to copy skills. At those words, Cookie's expression shifts, growing tense and serious. Kuji is in utter disbelief, wondering if such a cheat-like skill could even exist. Asia finds the situation amusing, while Igawa looks bored by the whole affair. To end it, Sejiro rejects Cookie, stating that while he understands his reasons, the answer is no. Cookie is disappointed. His real goal was to copy one of their skills. He decides it's time to play his final card and unleashes his mana. A powerful white aura explodes from his body with incredible pressure. The saviors are floored, wondering what kind of absurd power this is. Enraged, Kuji yells, thinking the brat intends to fight them all. But then, Kuki suddenly bows his head respectfully, leaving the big guy completely baffled. He declares he'll take their words to heart and train twice as hard. Kuki even thanks Kuji for the lecture, saying it has motivated him even more. With that, he turns and calmly walks away. Kuji calls him back, and Kuki thinks to himself, he took the bait. The big guy compliments the kid's mana, admitting he has some manners after all. Kuki smiles and acts humble, though he thinks this isn't his usual style. Kuji then asks the crucial question, why is he so desperate to become stronger? The boy's expression darkens as he remembers his reason. In a brief flashback, he reveals his sister collapsed and is now in the hospital. He explains that he wants to become a mage she can be proud of when she finally wakes up. Deeply moved, Kuji bursts into tears and grabs the boy, shouting that he will train him personally. The scene shifts to a massive arena where Kuji explains his skill creates powerful barriers. Kuki reveals in his thoughts that he has studied their skills and wants to copy Kuji's. He dreams that with such a powerful barrier, he could finally protect everyone. Kuji prepares for the test, announcing this will be a battle of skill versus barrier. He then summons a colossal barrier from the earth called the Wall of Resolve. The wall rises with immense power, a testament to the strength of his ability. With that, Kuji challenges the boy to strike the wall. Kuki doesn't hesitate, rushing forward and activating his Iron Fist skill. His punch slams into the barrier, causing a golden explosion of energy. But instantly, the impact rebounds back into his arm. The force is so great he's sent flying backward, shattering a barrier on the ground. Kuji catches him and explains the wall reflects all damage it takes. He then dares Kuki to break it, warning him this is no bluff. The big guy promises that if he has the guts and succeeds, he'll not only join his team, but he'll take him on an S-rank dungeon raid. Kuki focuses, and a glowing sigil of strength forms on his hand. He then summons his Fuma and fuses it with a fireball, creating a gigantic tiger of flame. Kuji can't believe his eyes. What kind of monster skill can merge powers like that? Kuki commands the Fuma to attack with everything it has, and the beast prepares its assault. It unleashes a fiery roar, a devastating technique aimed straight at its target. The stream of fire rushes forward at terrifying speed, obliterating everything in its path. Kuji is completely shocked, yelling that there's no way he could break the wall in a single blow. Kuki flinches, bracing for the full reflected damage of his attack, but to his confusion, he feels nothing. He's unharmed. Kuji explains that the wall doesn't reflect damage against someone who breaks it on their very first try. He admits the boy is the first person to ever achieve this feat, and looks at him in a new light. Kuki is flustered, but happy to be acknowledged. The big guy turns away with a slight smile, clearly satisfied with the outcome. He asks if the kid managed to copy it, and Kuki confirms he has acquired the absolute barrier. Kuji says he'll share his power, but warns that a copy can never surpass the original. He then asks a serious question. Does Kuki distrust the department? The boy hesitates, recalling a heavy moment from his past. But to his surprise, Kuji reveals that he doesn't trust them either. He says the department has been acting strangely, and that even he doesn't know what the Grand Mage is thinking. Kuki tries to call out to him, but suddenly, something horrific happens. Someone strikes Kuji from behind, and he coughs up blood. Kuki panics, screaming his name, unable to process what's just happened. He froze, his eyes widening in disbelief. The assailant was none other than the Grand Magus himself, the legendary head of the Ministry of Magic. This was the man who foresaw the apocalypse through an ancient, forbidden art. To avert this catastrophic fate, he personally handpicked the 7 sages. Back in the heat of battle, Kuki stared down at Kyuji's broken form, a crumpled heap on the unforgiving ground. He called out the sage's name, his voice trembling in denial, but it was useless. The giant warrior lay motionless. The Grand Magus then advanced on Kuki, his sword raised for the final blow. But Kuki's instincts screamed. He instantly activated the skill he'd just copied. Absolute Barrier. The devastating sword strike was nullified, shielding Kyuji's fallen body from harm. Fury erupted within him. Kuki roared, unleashing another power, Thorn of Vengeance. With that, countless emerald spikes erupted, lunging at the Grand Magus with lethal force. But the old master merely activated his own divine ability, Future Sight, and his eyes began to glow with an ethereal light. He dodged every single thorn with impossible grace, as if he knew their trajectory before they were even launched. Frustration boiled inside Kuki. How could he fight an opponent who could see the future? To make matters worse, the Magus began weaving illusions, completely disorienting the boy. Kuki noticed the old man's movements were unnatural, almost like a glitch in reality. It wasn't human at all, he thought, as the Magus's image flickered in and out of existence. Suddenly, a move he couldn't possibly predict sent a jolt of shock through him. The Grand Magus's head simply vanished, dissolving like a phantom. Then, his entire body faded away, leaving Cookie stunned that he had escaped just like that. The scene shifts to the ministry's cold, silent morgue, where Kyuji's body lay on a gurney. Cookie approached, whispering an apology for not being strong enough to save him. His face etched with sorrow. He murmured that something had always bothered him, a single nagging question. If the Grand Magus truly saw the apocalypse, why did he never foresee a future where the sages were victorious? A chilling vision flashes. In every possible future, the sages ultimately fell to ruin. That's when it hit Cookie, a dreadful realization. Had the Grand Magus truly seen the whole truth? He understood now. From the very beginning, the old master knew the 7 sages were doomed to fail. But why? Why create a false prophecy? What was his true motive? He then pulled out his phone. A blinking dot appeared on a map, and he recalled a handy little skill called Sticky Transmitter. It turns out, in the heat of battle, he had secretly tagged the Grand Magus with a tracker, completely undetected. This ability let him pinpoint the Magus's exact location. With this lead, a fire of determination ignited in Cookie's eyes. He vowed to uncover the truth behind this grand conspiracy. Following the tracker's signal, Cookie found himself at a derelict building wrapped in menacing barbed wire. He peeked through a crack in the door, and what he saw inside made his blood run cold. It was a laboratory, filled with strange, coffin-like stasis pods. What in the world was the Grand Magus doing here? Without warning, the old master appeared, striking with devastating force, sending the boy flying across the room. Cookie rolled across the floor, grabbing a steel pipe and activating his defensive art, Iron Body. With the pipe, he managed to parry the Magus's blade in a shower of sparks. The Grand Magus remained silent, his gaze cold and unyielding. The battle raged on, a blur of motion as they exchanged blows at blinding speed. The Magus confronted him. "Are you wondering why my attacks defy your predictions?" Cookie smirked. "That's because I copied your skill. Now, we can both see the future." The Magus's eyes widened slightly. So, that's why his own precognition was glitching. With their powers on equal footing, the clash intensified into a maelstrom of attacks. Cookie pressed his advantage, roaring, "Tell me what you really saw with your prophecy." The two cultivators clashed head-on, their weapons locked in a tense stalemate, grinding against each other as sparks flew. Cookie pushed forward, demanding, "Why did you lie to the 7 sages?" He remembered the faces of the suffering masses. How could you stand by and watch, knowing the hell that was to come? His voice grew thick with rage as he accused the old man of deliberately causing all this pain. An image of his sister, helpless in the hospital, flashed through his mind, fueling the inferno of his fury. His pipe began to glow with raw power as he roared with pure hatred. "I will never forgive you for this." He channeled all his power into one final, devastating strike that landed true. But instead of blood, the Magus coughed up a strange, black sludge, leaving the boy bewildered. Cookie struck again, and the old master's body exploded, dissolving into a grotesque puddle of mud. He stared in shock, realizing it wasn't blood, but some kind of sludge. Suddenly, a chilling new voice echoed through the lab. Cookie spun around. The voice explained, "Just as you imagined. The Grand Magus has been dead for a long, long time." From the shadows, 𝑰𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 emerged with a twisted smirk, confirming the leader's death. Cookie recognized him instantly and demanded to know what he was doing here. 𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 chuckled. "You're a slow one, aren't you?" He then revealed his technique, Mud Puppet, an ability that lets him control corpses with sludge. 𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 revealed that the great Grand Magus everyone revered was nothing more than his puppet from the very start. The revelation shattered Cookie's world. "No. That's impossible," he screamed. 𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 confirmed it with a gleeful smile. "I made the Magus lie to orchestrate the world's destruction." An all-consuming hatred swallowed Cookie whole as he cursed him, unable to fathom such pure evil. But 𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 simply explained that the apocalypse was always coming. Even the world's top scientists had predicted it. So, he used the Magus to announce the prophecy beforehand, creating false saviors. When the world believed the 7 sages would save them, they breathed a sigh of relief. This false sense of security made everyone drop their guard completely. And with the world blissfully unaware, 𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 continued. Destroying it became that much easier. Cookie was confused, asking what he meant by destroying the world. 𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 then confirmed the apocalypse was inevitable, because it is our will. He revealed that this was why he chose to kill and control the Grand Magus. By doing so, he forced him to spin a tale of 7 saviors who would deliver salvation. Cookie's eyes widened in horror, unable to believe what he was hearing. Could this man really be serious about something so monstrous? A memory of that terrible day, the day it all began, seared through our main character's mind. Seeing the vision of the attack, Cookie finally understood. Asia had orchestrated everything right from the very beginning. A twisted smile spread across Asia's face, claiming he'd chosen our hero as a savior, a mere pawn for his convenience. But he conceded that Cookie had seen through his grand deception and tried to save the world alone. With a hand crackling with energy, he warned that our hero's meddling had become a problem. Cookie's senses screamed with danger, bracing himself for the coming storm. Suddenly, the ground began to churn and writhe as a vile, brown sludge erupted from the earth. This was his signature technique, mood marionette, a technique that sculpted countless puppets from the cursed clay. He revealed a horrifying truth. He had collected the souls of fallen mages and challenged Cookie to defeat his undead army. "Stop playing games," Cookie roared in defiance. Power surged through his fist, enveloping it in a brilliant aura. He slammed it into the ground with all his might, demanding to know why he wanted to destroy this world. But Asia merely sneered, saying words were useless because this would be his grave. Faced with an overwhelming tide of mud soldiers, our hero knew he had to act fast to survive. He instantly activated his link skill. A radiant magic seal blazed to life on his hand. He fused gravity control with a fireball, forging a blazing meteor from thin air. Asia looked on, genuinely impressed, finding it fascinating that he could not only use skills but merge them into something new. With a wicked gleam in his eyes, he declared his burning desire to dissect Cookie's body. Then, he produced a sinister-looking syringe, warning that he would soon add our hero to his puppet collection. But in a shocking twist, he plunged the needle into his own flesh, infusing himself with his mud puppet technique. His body warped instantly, becoming a monstrous, muscle-bound giant encased in hardened mud. Cookie stared in horror at the transformation, as Asia explained that his cursed mud could also amplify the power of the living. To demonstrate his newfound might, he unleashed a devastating strike. Our hero barely managed to defend, realizing his mana reserves were draining at an alarming rate. Asia mocked him, asking if that was all he had, and boasting that his technique was superior. In response, Cookie combined future vision with absolute barrier for a perfect defense. The impact rattled Asia's fist, and understanding finally dawned on him. He realized our hero had fused the Archmage's precognition with his own impenetrable barrier, an automated defense that could perceive the future and intercept an attack before it even landed. But Asia pressed his assault relentlessly, screaming that Cookie's mana would shatter first. Under the barrage, the barrier began to fracture, showing it was on the verge of collapse. Suddenly, a third skill activated. A verdant green energy shield erupted into existence. The villain reeled back in shock, wondering how he could possibly wield 3 skills at once. Cookie held his ground, though the strain was clearly immense. Asia admitted he was impressed by his ability to predict, defend, and counter in perfect sync. Cookie demanded to know what he truly was. Out of respect for his power, Asia decided to reveal the terrible truth. The apocalypse, he explained, was a sacred ritual for beings from another dimension. And to prepare for this ritual, these monstrous entities had gifted humanity with the very power of magic. Our hero was stunned, the horrific truth crashing down upon him. Asia confirmed it. They had seeded this world with magic for the sole purpose of one day devouring it whole. He went on, explaining that those who wielded magic were nothing more than a feast for these creatures. The magic was a gift to fatten them up, so they could be harvested and devoured once they reached their peak. Cookie confronted him, asking how he could possibly agree with such a monstrous plan. He screamed that Asia was human too. Was he fine with being devoured like livestock? But with a sinister grin, Asia posed a chilling question. When did I ever say I was human? The revelation rendered our hero utterly speechless, paralyzed by shock. Suddenly, the villain's body began to contort violently, unleashing a torrent of dark, crimson energy. His eyes blazed with a hellish golden light, revealing his true, monstrous nature. Next, wings forged from pure, fiery energy erupted from his back. He removed his glasses, his face twisting into a terrifying, fang-filled grin. Even his legs transformed, becoming thick and beast-like. Cookie could only stare upward in utter disbelief at the nightmare unfolding before him. The transformation completed, revealing a colossal, terrifying entity in the scientist's place. Paralyzed by pure terror, our hero stared into the true face of his enemy. A voice from the past echoed through his mind, the memory of someone being used as bait. The scene flashed back, showing Araki shoving Ori forward as a sacrifice. In her desperation, she asked what he was doing. He looked back coldly, declaring that as one of the 7 saviors, he could not be allowed to die. Araki spat that his life was worth far more than hers, as her sister cried her name. Even as she fell, she screamed for them to run because the monster was here. Back in the present, our hero recognized the form of that very same creature. The monster declared that the Chosen would live on, feasting upon humanity alongside their otherworldly masters. Cookie collapsed to his knees, utterly shattered by the devastating truth. The creature mockingly congratulated him for making it this far, and then bid him farewell with a final, devastating attack. A colossal beam of crimson energy shot forth, aimed directly at our hero. With his mana completely depleted, Cookie's body was frozen in place. He could only watch as death itself rushed towards him. He realized that using future vision had left him utterly drained and vulnerable. Worse, the absolute barrier had consumed the last of his reserves in an instant. He remembered this was ancient magic, far too powerful for his current vessel to handle. Lying helpless on the ground, he fell into despair, having reached his absolute limit in this godforsaken place. But he refused to give up. Screaming that he would not die here, he tried to activate the absolute barrier once more. The magic seal on his hand flickered weakly, lacking the power to fully manifest. As his hair began to fade, a sense of panic washed over him. His magic wouldn't respond. The monster's attack slammed into the earth, erupting in a cataclysmic explosion. The scene shifts to a few days prior, with Cookie asking the librarian what his real power was. She explained that the abilities he used were merely borrowed, which is why they were so limited. She then revealed a shocking truth. His original, innate skill was far more powerful. Cookie was speechless, trying to process the idea that he possessed a hidden power all his own. His eyes lit up with renewed hope. He asked excitedly if there was truly a magic that belonged only to him. Desperate to learn how to use it, he listened as she began to explain the activation conditions. She revealed that to awaken his true power, he needed to activate 7 different abilities simultaneously. Cookie was stunned by the condition, deeming it utterly impossible. But the librarian explained that the very skills he had collected on his journey were the key. The moment you unleash all 7 skills at once, your true mark will awaken. He repeated the number 7, still in disbelief that such an insane condition was required. The main character confessed that the most he'd ever used was 2 skills simultaneously. She agreed that 3 was possible in a desperate battle, but 7? It would instantly vaporize his entire mana pool. With an all-knowing smile, the librarian continued to unveil the secrets of his power. It was a forbidden art, a final trump card that could only be used once, when his mana was at its absolute peak. Back in the present, the monster lunges, and Cookie desperately tries to summon his absolute barrier. His heart sank as his magic fizzled into nothing. His reserves were completely dry. With a look of pure desperation, he braced himself, focusing everything on just surviving the impact. He roared for his power to return, if only for a single moment. As he screamed for a miracle, a lone figure was seen sprinting towards the battlefield to save him. In a flash, Kanai Momo slammed into him, pushing him out of the way and taking the hit herself. The impact sent them both tumbling to the ground, narrowly escaping the devastating explosion. Momo smiled in relief, but Cookie demanded to know why she was there. She shot him an irritated look and shoved her phone in his face, saying he was the one who contacted her. He remembered sending her the Grand Mage's location as a precaution, but that was a different lifetime ago. Now, he could only scream for her to get away. Cookie realized this enemy was on a completely different level from anything he'd ever imagined. He warned her that he was out of mana and couldn't move, making it a death sentence for her to fight. Just then, Momo began to conjure a fireball, magic swirling in her palm, but then she turned, placing her hand directly on his chest, causing Cookie to cry out in shock. The monster watched the scene with amusement, savoring their desperate struggle. Suddenly, a vibrant purple aura began to envelop our main character's body. She revealed her skill, Healing Fire, declaring that she would never abandon a friend. Cookie felt his mana reserves replenishing, a sensation so foreign it sent a shock through his system. Momo then looked at him with unwavering trust, asking if, with his power restored, he could defeat that monster. Stunned, he asked when she learned to use magic like that. She replied that a lot had happened, her mind flashing back to the dangers she'd faced alone. Momo promised to tell him everything after he defeated that slimy monstrosity. The creature recognized the rare healing magic, and its eyes gleamed with greed as it vowed to add her power to its collection. Cookie thanked her for the help, feeling strength course through his veins once more. He thought back to his past, realizing just how much things had changed. Back then, he was magicless, a punching bag for everyone at school. The main character was no longer that weak boy who always needed his sister to save him. He remembered his vow to become stronger, to never suffer that humiliation again, and now he had allies he could truly count on. He gave Momo a determined look. Most importantly, he had finally awakened a power all his own. But the monster only laughed, claiming its body was immune to all magic. It also possessed super regeneration, and could only be defeated by a single, overwhelming blow. The villain boasted that none of their skills could possibly destroy it in one hit. With that, it prepared another energy blast, ready to end the fight for good. But Cookie began to activate his skills, weaving them together. Gravity control, thorn user, fireball, electronic intrusion, and beast tamer. He then added absolute barrier and mud puppet to the mix. The monster roared that it was useless and fired its beam, but the barrier held strong, protecting Cookie and Momo from the apocalyptic attack. The villain was enraged. It couldn't believe a mere human could block such power. But then, its eyes fell upon the black sigil on Cookie's hand, recognizing it as ancient magic. As our hero's hair turned a brilliant blue, he declared that he would end this creature, right here and now. Then he vowed that he would save the world as he prepared to unleash his true, original skill. With his eyes glowing white, Cookie unleashed his ultimate magic, 𝑰𝒵𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚. Amidst the settling smoke, 𝑰𝒵𝒏𝒦𝑰 watched from afar, witnessing the result of the battle. Seeing 𝑰𝒐𝒐𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 lying defeated on the ground, the massive beast could hardly believe it, muttering that it was impossible before finally collapsing. Cookie smiled in victory, thanking Kanai Momo for helping him win. But suddenly, a dark and sinister energy erupted from within his body. Excruciating pain racked his senses, and he fell to his knees as Momo screamed his name in a panic. Cookie stared at his hand and saw a bizarre symbol now branded into his skin, wondering what kind of ancient magic this could be. We learn that this is an extinct magic, one that shouldn't awaken in modern humans. Only a grand mage or someone who has read an ancient grimoire can wield it, and it tears the user's body apart from the inside. At that moment, the librarian appeared in a flashback, revealing that Cookie's true original skill was on another dimension entirely. Cookie was confused. He didn't even know how to properly use his own magic. Was this what she had been talking about? Kanai Momo rushed to his side, asking if he was all right. Seeing the boy on the ground, a new determination set in his eyes. Cookie knew he had to master this power to become even stronger. The scene shifts to his past life, where he stared at his phone in absolute shock. The news on the screen announced that the Grand Mage had vanished, leaving him utterly bewildered. The disappearance of Number 4 and the Grand Mage sent shockwaves around the world. The scene changes, showing Asia Hakaru in chains, being interrogated as the prime suspect. The one in charge of the interrogation was none other than Number 3, Police Chief 𝑰𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚. She approached him with a sneer, asking if he was ready to talk. But Asia remained silent, a defiant smirk on his bruised face. 𝑰𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 accused him, stating his mud was found all over the Grand Mage's body. She also demanded to know why he was found lying pathetically on the ground. With a mocking tone, he simply replied, "Who knows?" which sent her into a rage. Seeing this was going nowhere, 𝒰𝒏𝒔𝒕𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒚 decided to use force to get a confession. She summoned an arsenal of weapons, warning him she would see just how long his tough act would last. With that, she began her merciless assault, cackling that she could finally use her full power. The woman flashed a cruel smile, saying she would start the torture with his stomach. Even as he was being beaten, Asia praised her attacks, saying they weren't bad at all. The scene then shifts to a morgue, where Cookie is staring at a covered body with a solemn expression. In a low voice, he says that he has finally avenged him. On the gurney lay the body of Kyuji, the monster our main character had just defeated. Suddenly, as Cookie stood there, a glowing book materialized out of thin air, startling him. He instantly recognized the grimoire, the very one he had copied from Asia, and wondered why it was materializing now. Its first power was body control, but the second was soul doll. Cookie's mind reeled with the implications. He could revive a person's soul, as a doll. A jolt of hope shot through him. He could bring Kui back, the man who had been slain by a puppet. The boy knew the chances were slim to none, but he cast aside his doubts. He had to try. With unwavering resolve, he placed his hands on the corpse and activated the soul doll skill. A brilliant golden light enveloped the body, and from within that light, a miniature version of Kai materialized on the stretcher. The man's original body then crumbled into dust, vanishing completely. Cookie held his breath, waiting to see if the forbidden magic had truly worked. The tiny doll twitched, and its eyes fluttered open, filled with utter confusion. Sitting up, the miniature Kai looked around and demanded to know where in the hell he was. His gaze then fell upon our hero, asking if he was a coda. Overwhelmed with emotion, Cookie snatched the tiny doll into a tight embrace, completely ignoring the little man's screams to let him go. The scene then cuts away to Kanai Momo. She wakes up with a cheerful stretch, completely happy and blissfully unaware of the recent events. The next day, Momo is playing with the Kai doll in the park, calling him adorable. But he's furious, scrambling onto her head and yelling at her not to touch him. Even in this shrunken form, the old warrior's stern attitude remained, his arms crossed defiantly. He remarks that he never dreamed these two rookies were hiding such monumental secrets. Kyuji declares that the world is rotten to its very core, including Asia and the Grand Sorcerer. Kuki is then reminded of their grim mission. To prevent the apocalypse, they must defeat thousands of monsters. Furthermore, Kyuji gives a chilling warning. There could be countless others like Asia lurking in the shadows. Hearing this, Momo's resolve hardens. She vows to become more useful in the coming battles. Her determination piques Kyuki's curiosity, and he asks where she learned her healing ability. With a smile, Momo begins to recount the incredible events. The scene flashes back to a chance encounter she had with Suzaki Yori at a bakery. She explains how this mysterious girl helped her train her fire-based abilities. In Momo's eyes, we see the reflection of a majestic phoenix, the very source of her power. During their training, Yori stopped her, explaining she was using her skills all wrong. To prove her point, Yori summoned a powerful blue flame that left Momo completely stunned. Yori explained that her unique blue flame reveals the true essence of any ability it touches. She revealed that Momo's fireball wasn't an attack at all, but a powerful healing art. The revelation shattered Momo's reality, leaving her in complete disbelief. She explained how she trained relentlessly to master this newfound healing power. And finally, she proudly demonstrated the fruits of her labor for Kuki. But Kuki was baffled. He had copied her fireball skill, yet he couldn't perform the same feat. That's when the tiny Kyuji interjects, suggesting it might be a reversed ability, a term that instantly grabs his attention. He explains that abilities are like coins, with a front and a back. The reversed side only manifests after extensive use, transforming a skill into its polar opposite. Just as Momo's offensive skill reversed into a healing one, his own defensive barrier could flip into a devastating attack. It dawns on Kyuki. His own copy ability must have a hidden reversal as well. Suddenly, a terrifying vision floods his mind. A black hole swirling above a building. The vision sharpens, revealing two men in uniforms in a darkened room. His heart plummets as he sees his sister on the ground, clearly in grave danger. Kuki snaps back to reality, screaming his sister's name and startling Momo. He looks down in horror at his hand, which is now glowing with the mark of an ancient magic. He realized the vision was a product of his future sight ability. Without another thought, he bolts, desperately shouting that he has to go right now. A single thought consumed the boy's mind. His sister was in mortal peril. As they race through the city, Momo asks if he truly saw the future. Kuki confirms the vision showed this exact hospital. As two mysterious figures watch from afar, he runs desperately, knowing that if he fails, the vision will become reality. The image of his sister's sleeping face flashes in his mind, reinforcing the imminent danger. With that single thought fueling him, he pushes his speed to the absolute limit, terrified that his sister is about to die. And just as he foresaw, a dark portal rips open in the sky. The younger, more aggressive-looking man smirks with excitement, but his partner cuts him off, reminding him they have a job to do. The scene then shifts to Kuki's sister, Miki Mirai, sleeping peacefully in her hospital bed. In a flash, the two villains phase through the window, hovering ominously over her. The leader approaches, whispering that he's finally come to collect her. He lifts her into his arms and takes flight, while his accomplice complains about how boring the job is. At that very moment, Kuki arrives, roaring for them to wait. Seeing the scene from a distance, our hero begins to levitate, ascending until he's face to face with the kidnappers. He prepares a powerful confinement skill, combining the crushing force of gravity with a massive fireball for his attack. Kuki unleashes his meteor rain skill with all his might, attacking the enemy without mercy. But the younger villain simply raises a single finger, and the entire barrage freezes in midair. With a simple gesture, he detonates every meteor before they can even get close. Kuki is left utterly speechless, unable to comprehend the enemy's absurd level of power. Seeing his reaction, the villain smirks, tauntingly asking what's wrong. Enraged, Kuki roars at them, demanding they return his sister immediately. The leader remarks on his swift arrival, almost as if he had foreseen everything. Our hero glares back, angrily demanding to know who the hell they are. The light-haired villain senses a familiar power, asking if Miki had used regression magic. He then smiles, asking if this is the one who defeated Asia. Kuki's rage boils over. He demands to know what they know, accusing them of being allies with Asia. His accomplice scoffs, shouting that they would never ally themselves with that pathetic loser. Understanding the situation, Kuki prepares to attack again, vowing that he will take his sister back. But the leader warns him that Miki is also an important key to their plans. With those chilling words, the villain simply snaps his fingers, preparing to unleash something terrible. In that instant, a grotesque, giant demon materializes behind the villains, changing the entire battlefield. From the ground below, Momo and Kiji look up in horror as more monsters pour from the hole. The old warrior is shocked, A monster outbreak of this scale, right in the heart of the city, was something that should be impossible. Worse, their auras were off the charts, revealing them all to be S rank or higher. Kuki faced the two of them, certain they were directly connected to the apocalypse. Visions of different monsters destroying everything only confirmed our hero's suspicions. Suddenly, Kusano appeared from nowhere and pierced one of the beings with her thorns. Kuki ignored the assist, screaming at the villains that he wouldn't forgive them if they harmed his sister. But the leader revealed with a smirk that Miki wasn't his real sister. The main character froze, utterly speechless, completely lost and unable to process what he meant. The villain then explained that Miki was one of their own comrades, leaving Kuki even more confused. He revealed her true mission was, in fact, the complete destruction of this world. Kuki was utterly shattered by this revelation, unable to logically process the information. The leader's companion began to laugh, finding it hilarious that they'd played the part of siblings. With a dark expression, Kuki lost his patience and told them to cut the crap. A flashback shows Kuki remembering his sister, who kindly helped him with his studies. The image of her gentle smile was the only thing that mattered to him. Back in the present, he refused to believe it, screaming that she was his sister. With that, he activated all of his copied skills, preparing for a massive attack. Even the mud puppet was added, merging all of its power into a single ball of energy. He then unleashed his very first skill, Extreme Black Light, with all his might, the attack striking one of the villains head-on. The creature seemed caught by surprise, the energy so potent that he was sent flying back by the impact. From below, Momo and Kyo were speechless, unable to believe Kuki's power. The main character watched intently, waiting to see the result of his devastating attack. But to everyone's shock, the villain reappeared without a single scratch. Kuki was stunned that his full power attack was completely useless. The villain started laughing, revealing that he too possessed an ancient magic emblem. Kuki looked at his own hand and realized they were identical, leaving him utterly dumbfounded. The man grew excited, saying his hands were itching for a real, thrilling battle. The villain decided he would play with Kuki for a bit, but his companion stopped him. It seemed the battle wouldn't happen anyway, as the backlash from his own power paralyzed the main character. Momo screamed his name, terrified, and wondering if he could even handle using such dangerous magic. He tried to approach them again, but the pain racking his body made it impossible to move. With a smile, the leader said his goodbyes, telling them not to worry because they would meet again. Just like that, the villains vanished into a portal, and Kuki, his strength depleted, began to plummet from the sky. As he fell, he could only think of his sister, while Momo's screams echoed from below. The symbol on his hand began to fade, and he passed out, calling her name. In a flashback, 𝑰𝑵𝑽𝑰𝑚𝑬 encourages Kuki, telling him to never give up, but her image warped into a nightmare with a sinister, terrifying smile. Kuki jolted awake, utterly horrified and confused about what just happened. He looked around and realized he was in a hospital room with Kanai Momo at his side. She explained that he had passed out and was in critical condition, but her healing magic saved him. Kuki then remembered he had to save his sister, shouting that she wasn't their ally. He tried to leap out of bed, but his entire body ached from his injuries. Kanai immediately stopped him, saying he couldn't possibly fight in such a terrible state. With tears in her eyes, she warned him that using that skill again could be fatal. Besides, she reminded him that even his life-risking magic had no effect on the enemy. But Kuki insisted, worrying about what might happen to his sister if he did nothing. Suddenly, the little creature shouted that he was an idiot and couldn't save her like this. It then advised Kuki to first learn about his skill and how to use it safely, because if he couldn't increase its power, rescuing his sister would be impossible. Kuki repeated the little creature's words and suddenly had a brilliant idea. Kanai Momo declared she knew just the right person to help. As the scene shifts and Igawa Himaka storms into a meeting, shouting Ikuto Kuki's name. Juman Sejiro listened to the report and calmly concluded that the rumors were true. Himika then declared this a violation and that they would apprehend Kuki immediately, but Sejiro cut her off, stating that this mission was his, as he was the one who scouted the boy. Sagai Tesu grew angry and asked if he was sure, but Sejiro told him to do as he pleased. With that, Sagai Tesu stood up and left the room, leaving Sejiro alone with his thoughts. A teacher appeared with a sinister smile, saying he hated arrogant newcomers like Kuki. Malice was written all over his face as he decided to end the boy right then and there. Elsewhere, Sagai Tesu was also preparing as a dark energy enveloped his fist. He stared at his hand, with red and black power flowing, ready for action. Back in the garden, Kanai Momo clasped her hands together and asked for help examining Kuki's skill. She made the request to Suzaki Ori, who seemed surprised but agreed as a favor. Ori said she was just relaxing but agreed to help in exchange for a delicious crepe. Overjoyed, Kanai hugged Ori tightly, thanking her friend profusely for the help. Kuki was surprised that Ori was helping, and remarked that she and Momo seemed very close. Ori then began to chant, creating a green flame towards Kuki to analyze him. But the flame in her hand turned black and unstable, shocking the girl. Kanai asked what happened, and Ori explained that she couldn't see anything but darkness. She concluded that his skill was incomprehensible, suggesting a dark and overwhelming power. Seeing that it wasn't working, Ori decided that Kuki himself would have to see his own abilities. With that, she changed her strategy and created a new spell, a powerful, green flame. The girl explained that this flame causes anyone who stares into it to dive into their own mind. She told Kuki to look deep inside so he could see his skill with his own eyes. His eyes glowed intensely, and the magic began to take effect immediately. Suddenly, he woke up in a strange place, wondering if it was a library. He thought it was a representation of his skill, but something felt wrong as he spotted a body on the floor. Startled, he realized the librarian had fallen and saw a mysterious figure in the back. The figure turned around and asked if he'd come to learn about his ability, putting Kuki on high alert. Then, the shadow stepped out of the darkness, revealing that he was none other than Kuki's former self. This version of his past explained that he was born from the time Kuki had no skills and was mercilessly bullied. A chill ran down Kuki's spine as he recognized his middle school self, the one they used to call Lucky. But then his other self revealed a shocking truth. He hadn't just awakened some random skill. He had awakened the single greatest ability to ever exist on this earth. The librarian struggled to speak the skill's name, her body barely able to move. But suddenly, she was thrown violently aside, silenced before she could finish. Kuki was paralyzed by the horrifying scene. Meanwhile, his other self revealed that Kuki's skill was creation. Holding a grimoire, he declared it to be the power of the world's first ancestral magic. The main character was still reeling from the revelation, unable to process the information. It was explained that creation manifests the user's deepest desires, changing its form according to their will. His old ego scoffed, saying the skills he'd copied were just a preliminary phase to gather magical materials. Now, he asked Kuki the ultimate question. What did he truly want to create? The boy hesitated, and his other self immediately pointed out his deepest insecurity. He had always been jealous of the power others possessed. Images of his rivals flashed before him, reminding Kuki how he'd always wished he had their skills. The phantom of his past confronted him, whispering a tempting question. Did he want to become stronger than all of them? Because if he didn't, he would never have the power to save his sister. A potent, dark energy began to manifest as the phantom promised that Kuki could finally surpass himself. His other self declared that this power was already within him. He just needed to truly desire it. With those words, Kuki focused his will and forged his second legendary skill, the fearsome evil eye. A torrent of dark energy erupted, corrupting the library's bookshelves as his past self roared with laughter. He celebrated that Kuki was no longer a manaless failure. He explained that all the books and spells now appearing belonged to Kuki, summoned by this dark aura. And in that moment, Kuki awakened his true potential and was reborn as a demon king. The scene flashes back slightly, showing Ori's ritual to analyze Kuki. The young man stared into space, completely lost in the green magic swirling around him. Kanai grew worried, seeing the pain on Kuki's face. But suddenly, a golden bolt of lightning crashed down, violently disrupting the ritual. To protect them, a small creature summoned an absolute barrier, shocking Kanai. In that very instant, Sejiro appeared, blasting the barrier with a powerful attack. The impact was so immense that the shield shattered, sending the little creature flying. He smirked, remarking that as expected of Kyuji, the barrier was quite tough. The girls watched in awe as a new hexagonal shield materialized to protect them. Sejiro then mocked them, saying the so-called 7 saviors had fallen far from grace. The small Kuji demanded to know what he wanted, and Sejiro declared he had come to capture Yoda. With a wicked smile, he apologized in advance in case he accidentally killed the boy. Kai yelled for the girls to take care of Ikuta and charged the enemy with all his might. But at the last second, the old man simply vanished into thin air, leaving Kai completely baffled. His attack hit nothing, and he was left stunned by his opponent's impossible speed. Kai was struck by countless invisible blows, unable to keep up with his movements. It was then that Sejiro revealed his skill, light speed, an ability impossible to see with the naked eye. He launched a powerful strike, declaring the kid was no match for him. But Kai struggled back to his feet, determined, remembering how Kuki had once saved his life. With all his remaining strength, he screamed that he would never let Kuki be killed. Suddenly, a dark aura exploded from Kuki's body as he began to levitate into the air. Ori and Kanai turned in shock, Realizing he had finally awakened, the young man continued to rise, surrounded by a sinister energy as he activated his second ability. His true power was fully unleashed, and its name was revealed to the world: Extreme Black Eye. Kanai was speechless as the skill's activation released a terrifying pressure. The girls felt their strength rapidly draining away, wondering what was happening. Sejiro was also affected and quickly understood the horrifying truth. The skill was copying the power of everyone around it. Even worse, it was relentlessly and overwhelmingly absorbing all their mana. Kai collapsed to the ground, completely drained, and cried out, "Ikuta, what is all this power?" The scene pans out, showing the ability was even affecting ordinary people across the city. Kai screamed at Ikuta, accusing him of stealing their power. With a cold, detached gaze, the main character simply replied, "I know," leaving Kai speechless. He explained that all power was useless if he wasn't strong enough to save his sister. For that, he raised a fist marked with a strange sigil, declaring that he needed to become stronger. Ikuta then proclaimed that he would use everyone's power to become the absolute strongest. Desperate, Kanai screamed his name, begging him to stop this madness. But Sejiro only laughed, remarking that just as he thought, the boy was extremely dangerous. In that instant, he decided there was no choice but to eliminate Kuki right here and now. He swallowed several pills, a special item that amplified his magic by over 100 times. His eyes blazed with golden energy, showing his terrifying power-up. With all his might, he unleashed a devastating attack, roaring for the boy to die. He lunged forward with a glowing hand, ready to deliver the final blow to Ikutaku. But his attack was stopped dead in mid-air, and the old man couldn't believe his eyes. Cookie glared down at him and warned that he wouldn't let a fake savior like him lay a single finger on him. With that, ominous dark portals began to tear open across the sky, displaying his newfound power. A volley of attacks erupted from the portals all at once, striking Sejiro with countless different kinds of magic. He was engulfed in the explosions, screaming in agony as he was blasted backward. But as he fell, he sensed a new energy gathering and was utterly aghast. Kuki then activated his first skill, Extreme Black Light, and fired a massive, powerful beam. The light slammed directly into the old man, who screamed again from the sheer force of the impact. His body was now covered in blood as he stared up at the boy still floating in the air. Kyuji was amazed that Kuki had used such a powerful attack without suffering any kind of recoil. Ori then deduced that he had offset the damage with the very magic he had stolen from everyone. Kanai looked at him sadly and asked, "Is this the answer you found?" She screamed that becoming strong this way wasn't like the real Kuki at all. The young man just stared at her in silence, his eyes completely empty and distant. Kyuji warns him it's useless, that his words will never reach her. But Kuki declares he will find his sister, for he can feel her power coursing through his very soul. He closes his eyes, focusing his senses, tracing the faint whispers of her magic across realms. With a smirk, he opens them and announces he has finally found her. With his arm raised against the encroaching darkness, Kuki proclaims he's going to save his sister. Seeing the sinister portal, his comrades rush forward, insisting they will fight by his side. But Kuki coldly cuts them off, declaring he has no need for their weakness and that they would only be a burden. His ice-cold words stun Kanai, and she screams his name in desperation, begging him to stop. Then he steps into the abyssal gate, leaving his despairing friends behind. In a final, desperate act, she reaches for him, shouting that she won't let him face this alone. In that instant, both Kanai and Kai are dragged into the portal, leaving Ori behind. She suddenly realizes she is not alone, as a cultivator appears from the shadows behind her. With a grim and fearsome gaze, he looks down upon her, ready for the next battle to begin. Inside a ruined grand hall, two men gaze upon the body of a girl lying on a dark altar. One of them smirks, finding it unbelievable that the fool actually used reverse magic. The other laments that not only did she escape, but she also took the sacred grimoire with her. He thinks the escaped girl is a real problem. But the ritual continues, and with the magic in Mickey's body, suddenly, the silver-haired man senses something that leaves his companion utterly baffled. It's Cookie, descending the stairs like a vengeful god, as a mocking voice sarcastically welcomes him to their domain. Kanai appears in a panic, pleading with Cookie to wait and calm his raging spirit. But in a flash, a blast of demonic energy erupts with a deafening roar. She and her small companion are frozen in shock at what just happened. The blonde-haired villain emerges, cloaked in immense power, boasting that Cookie has walked right into their world. Cookie remains utterly silent, observing his enemy without a flicker of emotion. The villain's excitement grows, calling the situation perfect as he instantly lunges forward with killing intent. Closing the distance in an instant, he sneers, confessing how he's been dying to play with Cookie. Channeling a surge of raw energy, he strikes our hero with a sadistic grin. The blow connects, but the villain is just getting started. He explains his technique transcends space, allowing him to bypass any defense and strike his target directly. With that, he attacks again, proclaiming his skill is inescapable and will grind Cookie to dust. He continues his relentless assault, mocking Cookie if the blows are too fast. But suddenly, he notices something that defies all logic, and pure rage contorts his face. Cookie hadn't moved a single inch, tanking every hit, leaving his enemy utterly speechless. Our hero then catches the next punch with ease, demanding he return his sister, now. He activates the absolute dark light, and a terrifying wave of sinister energy explodes outwards, forcing the villain to struggle against the crushing pressure. Realizing Cookie's aura is overwhelmingly stronger, Cookie creates an orb of light and simply crushes it with his bare hand. The force of the impact slams his foe into the ground. Defenseless, wasting not a single moment, Cookie prepares another strike to end it all and unleashes a full-power punch right into the face of his downed opponent. The impact is so brutal that blood erupts across the hall. Beaten and broken, the villain can only curse Cookie, calling him a monstrous bastard. The villain is consumed by disbelief, remembering how Cookie could barely control this power before. Cookie just continues to stare down at his foe with a grim expression, without saying a word. Suddenly, he strikes again, and the shockwave alone hits Kanai. The villain realizes his own magic is being siphoned away, accusing Cookie of stealing his very life force. Absorbing this new energy, the main character marvels at how incredible all this power feels. Momo can only watch on, her face filled with worry. The scene cuts to a montage of a merciless beatdown, with blood painting the stone floors. Finally, the villain lies broken and defeated, but still glares up at our hero with pure hatred. Cookie then asks where his sister is, but the man spits that she is now a member of Mobius. The little Kuj reacts with fury, and the villain confirms that Mobius is the name of their group. He explains they are 5 warriors, born to maintain order in that world. Kanai is shocked to hear they are the protectors of their world. Just then, Asia appears, explaining their job is to ensure the ritual succeeds. Kyuji is horrified, realizing they are the architects of the apocalypse, but Cookie cuts through the chatter, stating that none of it matters to him. He turns to Kanai, then gives the villain 5 seconds to reveal his sister's location, or he will face annihilation. Cookie then begins the countdown, increasing the pressure on the man lying on the floor. But unexpectedly, Kanai dashes forward and grabs his face to stop him. The main character is completely stunned, unable to comprehend why she would interfere. She screams at him, asking how he could say he doesn't care about anything. She reminds him that he came all this way to stop the apocalypse and protect everyone. Kanai accuses him of taking his sister's power, and now not caring if others get hurt. She says the Cookie she knew, his skills were never evil. This isn't him. Then, a brilliant pink aura explodes around her as she screams that she is not a damsel in distress. A voice echoes in Cookie's mind, asking what kind of sorcerer he wants to become. The scene flashes back to a memory with a woman asking what kind of skill he desires. A young Cookie eagerly replies that he wants the strongest skill. She then asks what he would do with such immense power. He thinks for a bit, but quickly answers that he would use it to protect his sister. The woman smiles and thanks him but says that alone is not enough, leaving him confused. She explains to him that one who wields great power also has a duty to protect everyone, and though she doesn't know what skill he will receive, she is certain he will become a powerful sorcerer. The scene shifts to a hero saying he wants that person to help anyone. He goes on to say that this kind of power must be used to save people. Little Cookie is incredibly excited and asks if she thinks he could become a savior. Ruffling his hair, she replies with absolute certainty that yes, he can, and she adds that he will succeed, as long as he never gives up. Back in the present, Cookie is frozen in place. Recalling the entire past conversation, the light in his eyes changes, showing how deeply those memories affected him. Unexpectedly, he strikes Kanai hard in the stomach, and she cries out in pain from the attack. The villain notices Cookie's demonic magic has vanished and orders his comrade to attack immediately. And so, the man lunges forward and begins to beat our hero mercilessly. At last, Cookie lay broken and battered on the floor. While the villain stood over him victoriously, Cookie's inner self appeared, demanding to know why he was just standing there. The boy warned that at this rate, he was guaranteed to lose the fight. Cookie thought he needed more mana to save his sister, but he immediately dismissed that idea. His younger self looked on, confused by the hero's reaction. He remembered how he once craved power, envying the skills of others, wanting only to be the strongest. But what he truly wanted was to become a mage his sister would be proud of. A hero who fights for others, just like Mickey always did. A mage who protects those precious to him, just as his sister did for everyone else. Cookie roared that if he couldn't become that kind of mage, he'd never have the courage to face her. He had promised his sister he would protect the world and become its savior. Suddenly, a bizarre headache struck him, making him cry out in pain. The scene shifted, and Cookie was now in a white, library-like space. Just then, his skill librarian manifested before him, surprising the hero. She explained that his creation skill changes its form, and he had finally understood its true nature. A brilliant azure aura erupted around Cookie, and he realized this was his real power. The librarian handed him a book, revealing it as the world's very first skill, and told him to give it a name. The scene cuts back to reality, with Cookie on the ground, beaten and bloodied. Kanai screamed his name as the hero slowly began to rise. The villain was stunned, unable to believe Cookie could still move. Closing his eyes, a voice in our hero's mind began to name his skill. He opened his eyes, now blazing with a blue light, and declared its name, Salvation's Light. The fiend was confused. He couldn't sense a single drop of magic, and thought it was all just a bluff. Cookie explained his mana was 0, but the villain just scoffed at the pathetic excuse. The enemy then prepared to strike, screaming that he would end Cookie and the other weaklings. But an impossible torrent of mana exploded from Cookie, shocking the villain with its sheer power. The hero explained this was the magic of a savior, activating only to protect someone, and right now, it was for the sake of his friends. His mana continued to pour out, endlessly. The villain panicked, screaming that infinite mana was impossible as he attacked with everything he had. However, Cookie effortlessly blocked every single one of his attacks. The enemy was speechless. His space-bending attacks no longer had any effect. Cookie declared that he had finally figured out the villain's skill, leaving him completely stunned. He explained that any skill his eyes had witnessed could never strike him again. The villain raged at how broken that ability was, but Cookie simply placed a hand before him. With a single touch, he unleashed a torrent of blue energy that instantly paralyzed his foe. The fiend was in shock, captured in a flash by a completely unknown power. The surprise was so immense that the villain's eyes glowed from the intensity of the magic. From afar, his accomplice noticed a white insignia, a magical attribute never seen before. Cookie then revealed this was the light attribute, a power uniquely his own. He prepared to strike with his full might, unleashing the power of the very first skill. The attack was a blast of energy called pure white light. With that, a pillar of light descended from the heavens with absolute force, striking the villain directly. In the end, the fiend lay on the ground, utterly defeated, as Cookie stood victorious. Cutting back, the other villain was still observing Mickey's body on the altar, his eyes wide with shock at what he had just witnessed. Seeing Cookie with his friends, he realized his comrade had been completely annihilated. A new female villain appeared, finding it pathetic that one of her own had lost to a mere human. Just then, a skeleton appeared beside her, asking if they should carve up Cookie right now. She said she still needed more time and ordered the skeleton to handle the situation. Meanwhile, Kanai and Momo rushed to Cookie, overjoyed that he was finally back to his senses. She remarked that he'd gained yet another insane power, and he thanked them both. Cookie smiled and thanked Momo for reminding him of what was truly important. She replied with a radiant smile, saying she did it because they were his comrades. Overwhelmed with emotion, our hero began to cry tears of joy, agreeing with her wholeheartedly. But the mood shifted when he announced he could sense his sister's mana nearby. Kyuji grew desperate, understanding this meant grave danger was approaching. Cookie decided to go to his sister and told his friends to return to their world immediately. But 2 new enemies appeared, warning that they wouldn't let him interfere with their plans. Our hero was startled, not expecting more villains to appear out of nowhere. The girl, Noroko, took a picture, mocking how her comrade had been completely taken down. Kyuji, enraged by the sight, shouted and demanded to know who they were. The skeleton, Obi, stated they didn't need to know, since they were about to die right here. Cookie sensed their mana as the villains told them to perish without holding any grudges. The girl gave a sinister smile, asking if they really intended to interrupt the ritual. Worried, our hero prepared for battle, the insignia on his hand glowing. At that moment, the small boy stomped his foot on the ground, activating his own ability. He created an absolute barrier, trapping the 2 villains inside. With that, he yelled for Cookie to go on ahead, vowing that they would hold this pair off. Cookie hesitated, unsure if he should really leave his friends behind. But Kanai yelled for him to go, saying he needed to save his sister as fast as possible. His resolve hardened, and with a determined look, he gave his 2 friends his deepest thanks. The exit Kyuji created in the barrier would only last for a few seconds, but it was more than enough time for our hero to escape. He shot through it, but the villain warned that he wasn't going anywhere. But a blast of fire appeared, and a voice declared that wasn't going to happen. Kanai and Kai took their stances, stating that their opponents now were the two of them. The skeleton found it all to be a nuisance, while the girl scoffed, doubting they could possibly win. Kyuji admitted that before, without this power, they wouldn't have stood a chance. He asked Kanai if she could feel that energy, and she immediately confirmed it. It's explained that Cookie's skill, Salvation's Light, is a power that gives. Therefore, the mages he copies also receive a portion of his infinite mana, and so, Kyuji steeled himself, shouting that he would accept this power from Ikuta with everything he had. Kanai, overflowing with power, warned they wouldn't let them lay a single finger on Cookie. Amidst the chaos, Cookie blazed a trail of destruction. But suddenly, a strange creature materialized before him, a colossal dragon made of pure crimson energy. Realizing the dire situation, he unleashed a power slumbering within his hands. This was his signature skill, Salvation's Light. The technique infused all of his magic with the holy attribute of light. But even as he attacked, a sense of dread washed over Cookie. Something was wrong with this battle. He could feel his sister's mana, yet he couldn't get any closer to her. Cookie then remembered she was with Mobius Naroko and the skeleton, Mobius Hobi. He knew that Kanai Momo and Kai were holding back the enemy for now. The scene shifts, and Mobius Naroko sneers, asking her skeletal ally who they should eliminate first. In a flash, Sagaitetsu appeared, shocking Suzaki Yori, who now faced 3 formidable foes. A stunned Sumon Sajiru demanded to know what Sagai was doing here. Sagai clenched his fist as a memory from the other day flooded his mind. A flashback begins, showing him undergoing tests at a medical center. He recalled the chilling sensation of a bizarre presence right behind him, and that was the moment a dark, sinister energy first erupted from his arm. He explained that deep within that strange space, a malevolent being was waiting. It was the one who had cursed him, and he had rushed here to finally settle the score. The word curse sent a shockwave through Suzaki Yori. With a wicked smile, Mobius Naroko confirmed his fears, and the tension on the battlefield became suffocating. Behind her, the Phantom Beast doll manifested a terrifying SSS-class monster. Mobius radiated pure confidence, completely shrouded in a crimson aura of power. At the same time, Sagai felt the curse activate within his body, and he clutched his chest in agony. She revealed that the curse was one of the most powerful in existence. When Sagai demanded to know why she did it, Mobius explained she had seen a future where his world was overrun by mana and monsters. Sumon Sajiru's face went pale. He realized she was talking about the apocalypse, but she continued, explaining that in that future, one man was a cataclysmic problem. She pointed a finger directly at Sagai Guy. "That man is you," she declared, calling his strength terrifying. That was why she placed a curse on him. For 5 years, he would be unable to fight at full strength, becoming a shadow of his former self. Helpless, Suzaki Ori lamented his inability to save him. While Kuki seemed to grasp the entire situation, Mobius taunted Sagai, sneering that her very presence amplified the curse's torment. Sumon Sajiru instantly understood her strategy and ordered Sagai to retreat, but suddenly, Kyuji activated his absolute barrier, catching the enemy completely off guard with his technique. Sumon warned that the dome wouldn't open until someone inside was defeated. With a smirk, Mobius Naroko realized their plan, to split them up and fight one-on-one. Kyuji apologized to Sagai, thinking that even with Kuki's power, this battle would be incredibly difficult. Kuki knew that fighting both of them at once would be too much for him and Kanai, so he told Sagai to leave the skeleton to him and focus on taking down Mobius. The skeleton, Mobius Hyobi, wasted no time, drawing his katana to begin the duel. Sagai manifested a blade of blue energy, and the two warriors charged, clashing in a powerful strike. The impact of their blades erupted in a massive explosion of power, mixing their red and blue auras. Even while cursed, Sagai's phenomenal strength allowed him to block the skeleton's attack. Impressed, Mobius Hyobi said that out of respect, he would offer a warning. He explained that his blade disintegrates magic itself, and that a single scratch could prove fatal. The warning was chillingly clear. If that blade touched him, it meant instant death, putting Sagai on high alert. On the other side of the battlefield, Mobius activated an ancient magic with a confident smirk. The technique was revealed as her colossal doll opened a giant, cursed eye. It was explained that anyone who gazes into it would have their body destroyed by a powerful curse. In that moment, Kai and Kanai were caught, and a dark energy began to ensnare them both. Mobius taunted them, asking if it hurt, and telling them to just give up and die. But Kujui was undeterred. With a powerful shout, he shattered the curse with his own strength. The villainess was shocked that her curse had no effect, and he revealed why. He explained that his body was merely a clay doll, a vessel with no true physical form. Kai then asked Kanai if she could still fight, and she answered with fierce determination. She summoned the Phoenix Healing Flame, and a brilliant firebird appeared, purging the curse's remnants. Mobius couldn't believe it, wondering how she could possibly nullify her curse. Kanai explained that she could never heal herself before, but thanks to Akoda, her power had grown. The villainess found this all very amusing. Since her curses were useless, she declared she would simply crush them with force and ordered her triple S beast to attack with everything it had. Kai yelled for Kanai to unleash her strongest attack while he prepared a runestone. She focused her power, determined to be useful to Kuki in this fight. Kyuji remembered his promise to handle this part of the battle, and a real man always keeps his word. Ki then used the tablet of absolute barrier breaking, shattering the stone with a single strike. Their attacks combined, creating a colossal explosion that completely engulfed the enemy. When the dust settled, the monster had been vanquished, and Mobius Naroko lay defeated on the ground. A weary Kanai and Kyuji stood victorious amidst the devastation. On the other side of the barrier, Mobius Hyobi sensed that Naroko had lost. Sumon Seijiro then apologized to Kuki, telling him he was counting on him for the rest. Kuki thanked him, remarking that it had been a long time since he'd felt the power of this light. With a smile, Sumon told him to show them his true power. Kuki prepared to unleash the might of humanity's strongest man, as Mobius Hyobi summoned a horde of grotesque monsters to attack. Kanai Momo panicked at the sight of the creatures, screaming, "What are those monsters?" But Sagai remained unfazed. He focused his energy, preparing to use one of his special abilities. He then activated absolute water temperature, blasting the enemy with immense power. In an instant, the moisture in the air flash froze, and all the monsters were completely obliterated. A dumbfounded Suzaki Yori could only state that Sagai's power was simply unbelievable. Suman explained that the skill controls humidity itself, allowing its user to freeze or incinerate everything around them. The skeleton found this ability terrifying, since water exists in all living things, but then he charged forward, yelling that it was different for him, because he had no water in his body. The battle raged on as the two warriors clashed in a brilliant display of swordsmanship. The skeleton taunted him, claiming such skills were useless, but Sagai simply declared he would cut him down. What followed was a blindingly fast exchange of blows. Their blades sang as they met in midair. Mobius Hyobi, shocked, had to admit the title of strongest was no exaggeration. But he remembered Sagai was only human, and leaped high for a devastating strike from above. Sagai dodged with ease, leaving the skeleton stunned that he had escaped. He explained his finishing sword kills with a single touch, even a mere scratch is fatal. With an air of superiority, the skeleton warned that his next attack would not miss. Sagai fell silent for a moment, then announced it was time for him to get serious too. The skeleton was doubtful, but Sagai confirmed his body held not a single drop of moisture. He then shocked him by revealing it actually did, as a blazing aura of fire erupted around him. With a look of pure determination, Sagai prepared to unleash a new power. He took his stance as steam began to pour from his entire body. The skeleton was floored, stammering as he demanded to know what he was trying to pull. Just then, Sagai appeared, completely engulfed in a boiling red energy. The skeleton finally understood, asking if he was boiling his own blood. Sagai explained, "This triples my power, but the strain means it won't last long. So," he warned, "I'm ending this right here," and charged forward with all his might. The skeleton recoiled in terror at his godlike speed. Unable to track his movements, he grew desperate, realizing he couldn't even see Sagai's blade. In a panic, he knew this was on another level entirely, and tried to defend himself. The skeleton thought the only thing he could do was block the incoming storm of attacks. Suzaki screamed that he was too fast, and Kuji admitted he couldn't see anything either. The exchange continued at a reality-bending pace. Sparks flew like a forge in overdrive. Mobius Hyobi was in awe, praising Sagai's incredible control of the sword. He thought it looked like a true, breathtaking dance of blades. Sagai kept up the pressure, giving his opponent no room to breathe. Suddenly, the skeleton spotted an opening and lunged to attack, but it was far too late. In a flash, Sagai appeared behind him, his sword poised for the final blow. The attack was so fast it sent the skeleton's head flying. His last thought was of how magnificent the strike had been. As his lifeless body collapsed, the battle was finally over. But the backlash hit Sagai like a tidal wave as the effects of his power-up began to fade. Suzaki Ori watched in shock. Witnessing the power of the #1 ranker, Kyuji was left speechless, admitting it was all just overwhelmingly impressive. Sagai then asked if they were ready to move, but Kanai said it would be a moment. Suddenly, a giant, grotesque creature appeared, surprising everyone. Giving it zero chance, Sagai used his skill and instantly flash-froze the monster solid. He then said to consider it a thank you for dealing with the curse earlier. Kyuji found it strange, commenting that it didn't fit his cold persona. The scene cuts to Kuki, floating in the air with a grave expression. He realized that even with the barrier down, something was still terribly wrong. The further he went, the more his sister's mana seemed to slip away. He understood this had to be a skill, some kind of labyrinth trapping everyone inside. And so, he resolved to shatter the maze with his light magic. The technique worked, but to his horror, he found his sister lying on a twisted altar. Kuki stared down in despair, screaming her name at the horrific sight. A mysterious man congratulated him, but warned that the ritual was nearly complete. Consumed by rage, Kuki unleashed his power, screaming for him to give his sister back. With all his strength, Kuki fired a massive beam of light at the enemy, but his foe just smirked, shrouded in a sinister red aura. The attack landed a direct hit, but a dark power began to react. Kuki was horrified to realize his attack had no effect. Suddenly, all the energy from his blast was thrown right back at him. His enemy looked down on him, proving his attack was utterly useless. Knocked to the ground, Kuki saw Miki on the altar and yelled, "I know what that ritual is." A voice declared that the girl lying there was not his sister. The villain spoke with pure malice, revealing that she was, in fact, their sister. Kuki was completely stunned, trying to process this bizarre information. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice call his name, leaving him astonished. The voice was coming from Miki, and he wondered if it was truly her. The enemy was startled that he could hear her, thinking she was unconscious. The voice then thanked Kuki for coming, and apologized for the confusion. And finally, she revealed she was actually a member of the Mobius organization. The scene shifts to a flashback where Miki explains that Mobius was formed by 5 warriors. She said that she spent her time there as the youngest member of the group. It's revealed their mission was to maintain the underworld where monsters lived, and also to send these creatures to other worlds to aid a grand invasion. But over time, something about the mission began to bother her. She explained that deep down, she always had doubts about the orders she received. Miki wondered if this invasion was truly the right thing to do. Hearing the screams from the abyss, she always felt that something was deeply wrong. So one day, she decided to tell everyone how she truly felt. With a smile, the leader told her not to think about unnecessary things. But Miki insisted, shouting that she no longer wanted to be part of the invasion. Enraged, Genji struck her, telling the girl to shut up and get to work. As she fell, the others surrounded her, reminding her of the mission given to them by their master. The leader then warned that abandoning this duty was absolutely unforgivable. A young Miki lay on the floor, paralyzed with pure terror. Left with no other choice, Miki said she simply decided to run away from that place. She would escape to another world, where she could finally live in true peace. Using one last item, the Book of Regression, she left the underworld behind, and so, she arrived alone on a sunny street in a completely different world. Exhausted, she eventually collapsed, but revealed that someone found her in that moment. The person who saved her was none other than the woman who would one day become Kuki's mother. A flashback reveals how the woman opened not just her home, but her heart to Miki. The two forged a bond deeper than blood, as if they were truly mother and daughter. She showered Miki with all the love in the world, raising her as her very own. But then, one fateful day, a wondrous surprise occurred that would change her life forever. It was revealed that Miki's adoptive mother had given birth to a baby boy, little Cookie. Miki's heart swelled with absolute joy, for she had always yearned to be part of a real family. It was never about a title, not like the one she shared with the Mobius members. What she truly yearned for was a real family, bound together by love and genuine warmth. Miki confesses that every single day since meeting Cookie has been a gift of pure happiness. We see flashes of a gentler past, their mother's soft voice, reading a story to a little Cookie. In another cherished memory, a teenage Miki protectively leads her younger brother to school, his hand held tightly in hers. Every moment, even a simple water gun fight, became a cherished memory. Miki thanks him for making her smile again, for giving her the feeling of truly belonging. With an innocent grin, little Cookie adored his big sister. Snapping back to the present, tears stream down Cookie's face as he finally grasps the truth of Miki's suffering. Even in her weakened state, she tells him he's grown up, but pleads with him to run away from this place. She warns him to be careful. Their leader, Roku, is terrifyingly powerful, but Cookie screams back that he can't possibly do that, not after the lesson his sister taught him. The scene shifts, revealing Miki teaching him when he was just a boy. With a warm smile, she would tell him, "If you never give up, you can do anything." With that fire reignited in his eyes, Cookie declares that he will absolutely take his sister home with him. He then unleashes a powerful surge of blue aura, roaring that they are going home together. But Roku cuts him off, sneering that this is a family matter and he should just shut his mouth. Refusing to back down, Cookie clasps his hands, gathering his power for another concentrated blast of light. He fires a beam of pure white energy, a devastating blast aimed right at Roku. But the attack is impossibly reflected, slamming back into Cookie and sending him crashing to the ground. Lying on the ground, he realizes he has to be careful not to hit his sister. With that, he teleports, attempting a surprise attack from behind the enemy. But it's useless, as the beam of light is once again sent flying back at him. Cookie realizes any light-based attack will just be turned against him, forcing him to switch strategies. He activates his control skill, combining the power of gravity with a roaring fireball. Blazing boulders hurtle towards Roku, who doesn't even flinch, because the entire attack is reflected, crashing down on Cookie himself. He screams in agony from the impact. Roku simply stares down at him, asking if he finally understands that no attack can ever reach him. Cookie's mind races. What kind of ability is this? Roku must be using some kind of skill. The problem is, no matter how many times he sees it, his copy ability isn't working. With a chilling smirk, Roku warns him that the more he attacks, the more he'll hurt himself. He finishes by saying the ritual is nearly complete, so he'd better just stay quiet. Cookie screams, demanding to know what they're planning to do to his sister in this ritual. Roku then reveals their grand design. They are trying to resurrect the Archmage Zero in this era. Confused, Cookie asks who Zero even is, and learns he was the Prime Sorcerer, the very first being to ever wield magic, and the legendary founder of the Mobius organization. But tragically, his very existence was erased by the flow of time. That is why they became obsessed with the forbidden art of regression magic, a forbidden power that can transcend time itself. With this ultimate technique, they can finally resurrect the soul of the long-lost Zero. Roku says Mickey stole this very magic, wondering who she could have used it on, but he scoffs, saying it doesn't matter since they can use the residual power left inside of her. Using Mickey's magic, her body will become the vessel for Zero's revival. In utter desperation, Cookie asks what will happen to his sister after the resurrection. With a sadistic grin, Roku answers that they will, of course, kill her, as they have no use for traitors. Cookie is frozen in shock, his mind reeling as he tries to find a way to stop this madness. To save his sister, he must defeat Roku. But just then, Mickey's body reacts. Suddenly, he spots a strange seal glowing faintly on his sister's left hand. Seeing the emblem on her hand, an idea sparks in Cookie's mind. He hesitates, terrified of being wrong, but he decides he must take the risk, focusing his power into the palm of his hand. With his coalesced energy, he forges a holy sword of pure white light, ready to strike. Roku scoffs, mocking him for continuing a fight where any attack is useless. But suddenly, the villain's arrogant expression twists into one of utter shock and disbelief. Cookie doesn't attack him, but instead strikes his own reflection in what appears to be an invisible mirror. Upon impact, the very space between them shatters like glass, revealing the real Mickey lying behind the illusion. A desperate Roku lunges forward, trying to stop Cookie from reaching her, but the mirror shards block his path. As Roku roars in fury, Cookie steps through the shattered barrier with a look of pure determination. The attack passes through the mirror world and strikes the real Roku, drawing blood for the first time. Cookie then declares with a grim expression that he has finally returned from the world of mirrors. Roku demands to know how he figured out the entire trick. Cookie explains the clue. His sister's emblem is on her right time's hand, but in the reflection, it appeared on her time's left asterisk, and since he couldn't copy Roku's ability, Cookie deduced that he wasn't using a skill at all. Instead, he must have prepared some kind of elaborate trap to protect himself. Cookie had figured it out. Roku had created a pocket dimension, where everything was reflected, trapping him inside. So, all he had to do was find the exit and shatter it, just like he did in the labyrinth. Roku realizes Cookie targeted Mickey because the true weak point would be the one place he'd never expect an attack. Roku admits he's clever, but warns that he's a little too late. Suddenly, a sinister energy floods the area, catching Cookie completely by surprise. The scene cuts to his friends outside, who feel the ominous tremor wash over them. As Cookie rushes to his sister's side, Roku declares that the end is near. He proclaims that the world will soon perish, plunging Cookie deeper into despair. Cradling Mickey in his arms, Cookie is told this is all his fault, because of his own immense magical power. Roku explains that Cookie's world is simply overflowing with power, making it the perfect target for a full-scale invasion. An overwhelming energy begins to erupt from Mickey, as Roku screams that Zero will be reborn. With a triumphant grin, the villain confirms that the resurrection is finally happening. Outside, Cookie's friends can only stare at the sky, completely bewildered. In the next moment, Cookie and Mickey are completely swallowed by the blinding energy as Ori screams his name. On the ground, A frantic Ori screams Cookie's name as he holds onto Mickey, but it's too late. A dark portal erupts, pulling Cookie, Mickey, and all of their friends into the encroaching darkness. The scene shifts to a land of utter ruin, where a mysterious man lies on the ground. Suddenly, a hand reaches for Roku's defeated and motionless body. A blonde-haired man materializes, complaining that waking up is as unpleasant as ever. He then turns and glares at his own hand, sensing a strange presence nearby. A sigil glows on his palm, and he wonders if there is another like him. He then realizes the presence he feels is from a wielder of creation. A mysterious being appears, speaking coldly to the monsters lurking around. The creatures glare back, showing off all their rage and power. He then asks if they are happy, because he has finally awakened. In response, the monsters only roar, filled with hatred and instinct. But the man simply praises them, saying they never change, even after eons. They only follow their instincts, devouring magical energy as if it were life itself. The young man collapses, breathing a sigh of relief. He's grateful to have woken up just in time, but then he remembers the humans, and his face begins to contort with disgust. At that moment, the blonde entity prepares his magic, a glowing seal forming in his hand. He calls the monsters unsightly and simply erases them in a blinding flash. The scene then cuts to a house where a door is slowly creaking open. We see Cookie's mother waiting as he arrives at the door with Mickey. The boy smiles and announces he's home, which overwhelms his mother with emotion. She stumbles slightly, then rushes forward to pull them both into a tight, desperate embrace. In a flashback, Mickey thanks Cookie deeply for everything he's done. Cookie apologizes for letting her face the danger alone, but she is just grateful, saying the important thing is that her brother is safe. Mickey then admits she never thought Cookie could come this far. He turns serious, recalling the chilling fact that the apocalypse is fast approaching, just as Roku had said. In another flashback, Roku warns that fighting is pointless, because the wheels of fate cannot be stopped. He adds with venomous glee that the world will soon meet its end. Roku explains to Mickey that it's all her fault, because of her immense power. Their world is filled with an unusual power, making it the perfect target for an invasion. Cookie now understands the true problem, blaming himself for everything. He stands there, drowning in guilt. Mickey watches him in silence, then reveals she had sealed her own ability, terrified that Roku would find her. But thanks to Cookie, her power has returned, shining brightly on her wrist. He worries about the ancient magic, but she reassures him that it won't be corrupted. Curious, he asks what kind of skill it is, and she explains that it governs time, space, and life itself. She then stands, ready to demonstrate what her power can do. She turns to a potted plant, focusing on a tiny sprout. From her hand, magical gears materialize, a sign of her control over time. As she touches the plant, she explains this power affects anything she makes contact with. Cookie's jaw drops as she adds that it also works on monsters. With a determined look, she declares that she can now be useful in battle. He looks at her, calling his sister's name, completely moved. Hearing this, Cookie grasps her hand in a gesture of support. He looks directly into her eyes and promises she is not alone anymore. Mickey's eyes well up with tears as she asks him to protect the world together. His determination soars at her words. Then, with a confident smile, he agrees to her plan. The scene shifts to a luxurious grand hall. Cookie is thanking everyone for coming. The crowd whispers, buzzing with the rumor that he single-handedly defeated several rankers. He then introduces himself as the foretold, licensed mage, Ikuta Cookie, and with absolute conviction, he announces to everyone that the end of days is near. He continues his speech, explaining that the reason they are all here is to make a declaration. To the audience's astonishment, Cookie announces the birth of the new 7 saviors. The first to be introduced is the powerful and elegant 𝑰𝑵𝑭𝑰𝑵𝑽𝑰𝑚𝑬. Next is Kanai Momo, who is cuddling a small summoned creature. That ferocious little creature, named Q, wears a permanent scowl. The next savior is Suzaki Yori, who casually munches on a snack while facing the massive crowd. With a confident smile, Ikuta Mickey also joins the new team of heroes. And finally, the imposing Sagai Tesu is revealed as the last member. The group assembles before the crowd, with Cookie leading the formation. He then points to himself and roars that he will save the world. The crowd goes wild. They scream that they are counting on him to save them all. But Cookie clenches his fist and warns that this alone is not enough. The people are confused, as he says, the 7 of them cannot win this alone. He shouts that without uniting everyone's strength, they have no hope of stopping the apocalypse. Watching the speech on a large screen, citizens on the street feel useless and powerless. On the screen, Cookie speaks directly to them, telling them to stop thinking that way. He then screams with all his might, calling for every single person to see themselves as the true savior. Kanai Momo looks at Cookie, impressed by the boy's courage and his powerful words. Hearing this, the crowd erupts with newfound spirit, yelling that they have skills too and that they can help. He smiles at their reaction, thinking that together, they might just be able to face the end of the world. But suddenly, a malevolent presence descends, and Cookie feels a sharp sense of danger in the air. Someone screams in despair that the sky is full of holes, and monsters are pouring out from them. Outside, the invasion begins, as S-rank and even stronger monsters appear. Cookie is shocked that it's all happening so soon, but Sagai says it doesn't matter when they came. With his sword in hand, Sagai overflows with power and vows to cut down every last one of them. A massive hydra roars, preparing to annihilate the approaching enemies. Cookie calms his nerves and declares that what they need to do hasn't changed at all. With the formation assembled, all the saviors unleash their auras, ready for battle. He surges with power and screams that he will absolutely stop every single one of them.